What's up, guys, and welcome back to another match for the Hearthstone tournament of the Esports Regional Qualifiers for the 18th Asian Games. My name is Gia, and I'll be your caster for this next match going into the group stages for the Central Asian region. And it's going to be between Gambit from Kyrgyzstan and Alucard from Uzbekistan. I honestly have not heard too much about either of these players, but I think it's great to see that these countries that we might not necessarily see too often in the main HCT circuit have a place to shine here at the AESF organized tournament. For those of you who aren't familiar, the AESF, or the Asian Esports Federation, is the only esports authority in Asia that's recognized by the Olympic Council of Asia. And this whole tournament is kind of following the Olympic format, in which one player from each country is representing their country for the gold. So Gambit has a pretty interesting lineup. He's got that Shudderwalk Shaman, Quest Warrior, Control Mage, and Q Block, so a relatively slow lineup, compared to Alucard, who's brought a mid-range Hunter, Even Lock, Odd Rogue, and Token Druid. And looking at how all the matchups line up, I feel like Gambit might be a little bit weak because of his Shudderwalk Shaman to that Odd Rogue from Alucard. Okay, we're heading into the first game right away, and Gambit is gonna go ahead and lead off with his Control Mage, Big Spell Mage versus Odd Rogue from Alucard. And the Big Spell Mage is generally quite favored in this matchup. They run a lot of removal, and the Rogue often runs out of steam. But if Gambit isn't able to piece together those removals in the early game, then Alucard might be able to slide out with the win, but early Doomsayer and Stonehill Defender for Gambit leading up into the chain of AoE starting with Dragon Fury seems very promising for Gambit. So Alucard, not the best hand. He does have the Dire Mole, but as the Rogue, you really want to try and get your Vicious Fledglings and Hedge Clan Thugs down on turn 3 before Dragon's Fury is active, and neither of those are in hand for Alucard, so I think the Rogue might be having quite a tough time in this game. So Gambit deciding if it's worth playing Doomsayer just against one minion. The thing he has to be scared of is a coin into one of those scary 3-drops that I mentioned, either the Vicious Fledgling or Hedge Clan Thug. So if that were to come down on the following turn though, Doomsayer would still be a pretty decent way of preventing a Vicious Fledgling from going face, although it's weak to Hedge Clan Thug. So I wouldn't mind playing down the Doomsayer. It seems greedy not to, and Gambit also has pretty good follow-up in the form of Stonehill Defender. So Alucard, pretty much forced just to go face with the Dire Mole and Dagger up here. Such is the power of Doomsayer on curve. On the following turn, he's going to hope to play Blink Fox into, I suppose, Captain Greenskin. The dagger hit to face here is a little bit interesting to me because Alucard has things to do for at least the next 2 turns, and I think it would have been fine to save one of the dagger charges. Not the best taunt options for Gambit here. I feel like he might just want to take the 0-9 taunt just because it's the most stats for its mana cost. The other options are not particularly enticing. Perhaps the Trog Gloom Eater could eat up one attack from a minion from Alucard. But the 4-drop is the curve play for Gambit on the following turn, so it makes sense. So I expect the Blink Fox just to be coming down here. Anything that generates value could be pretty good for the Rogue, but Flame Geyser is not exactly all that scary. It is 2 points of burst, though, that the Mage might not necessarily be aware of, so it could come into play a bit later on, but For now, Gambit has definitely staunched the aggression from Alucard and is still in a very comfortable spot. Alucard thinking about whether to coin out the deadly poison, I suppose. I would really not like to see that though, because not only has he wasted one dagger charge, but he can also just play Captain Greenskin on the following turn if he still has a weapon remaining. Stonehill Defender doesn't pose a big enough threat that it needs to be removed immediately. Okay, with the play of the Zero Knight on board, I think it's more likely that we see a Vile Spine Slayer to get rid of that, and then coupled with the dagger charge and trade into the Stonehill Defender. Alucard should now be getting scared because we're heading into turn 5 from the mage when they are very likely to have lots of AoE chained one after another, and Alucard has hardly been able to deal any damage thanks to Gambit's Doomsayer. And so Alucard's gotta be getting pretty worried now. He's hoping that this board sticks so that he can land a Fungal Mancer, but I expect Gambit to just cash in one of these Dragon's Fury, cash in the Dragon's Fury, because he has so much other AoE in hand. Double Meteor, double Flame Strike. He doesn't have to worry about getting some crazy amount of value from each AoE. I think it's way more important for Gambit to prevent any buff minion effects and strand that Fungal Mancer in hand. Okay, going for a bit more of a hedge here. By only removing one minion, it still makes the Fungal Mancer a lot worse, so I don't hate this, just using the Voodoo Doll.
The light protects me.
Dragon's Fury would, however, have been a guaranteed clear because his cheapest spell, as with most big spell mages these days, is Polymorph. So Alucard now piling on the damage, going a little bit wider on board, and setting up for a pretty good Captain Greenskin or Fungal Mancer next turn. I wouldn't hate just playing Meteor here, even though it doesn't clear off the Argent Squire. Gambit just has so much AoE in hand. So Captain Greenskin almost for sure gonna come down here, along with a Flame Elemental. Alucard, of course, playing around the second Meteor with his placement. Nice and clean, but Gambit has the Flame Strike to retaliate. He is getting down to a pretty low health total, but barring some Leroy Jenkins type draw from Alucard here, I think Gambit is going to be able to survive up till the turn that he can play Alexstrasza and heal right back up. No significant minion development available for Alucard here. He can play Flame Geyser and the Vile Spine Slayer just for tempo. It seems really awful. He'd love to be able to develop 2 minions here just so he can land some kind of Fungal Mancer buff, but that would have to involve having played the Ironbeak Owl, which is really just weak to a ping, so this is the best that Alucard can do. So now Gambit has to be quite scared of Leroy Jenkins, but unfortunately for him, there's no way to play around it, so he's just gonna have to remove this Flame Elemental and pray that he survives to get to the Alexstrasza turn. Removing the Flame Elemental is also not the easiest task. He would have to either play down the Baron Geddon or Blizzard to do that. Meteor as well, but or Dragon's Fury and Acolyte of Pain isn't too bad. I actually like that play more that I see it. Removing the Flame Elemental prevents any Fungal Mancer or Cold Blood shenanigans and makes it so that Leroy is the only out for Gambit. Okay, preferring to spend the Meteor over the Dragon's Fury because he has used the Flame Strike and wants to maintain a more powerful AoE in hand. I don't mind this. And Alucard here really just waiting for that Leroy to come into hand. he has a decent play with Vicious Fledgling and Fungal Mancer, actually. That would play around Dragon's Fury slightly. Well, no, it's still weak to Dragon's Fury plus ping, but Alucard is not able to develop any minions that have more than 5 health this turn, including the buff, so yeah, I wouldn't hate just seeing this Fungal Mancer here. Ooh, Arcane Artificer and Meteor makes for quite a clutch draw for Gambit. It means that he now has enough breathing room to be able to play Alexstrasza next turn. And that's a real heartbreaker for Alucard because if it's not Leroy on this next draw, he will have to expend some damage getting rid of this Arcane Artificer. That's still not a Leroy, which would have been lethal with the Cold Blood, but Alucard's not quite out of it yet. He hasn't seen the Alexstrasza from his own perspective, so in Alucard's mind, he's just thinking, alright, I gotta remove this Arcane Artificer, present a few more threats, and then hold on until I draw Leroy. But once the Alexstrasza comes down, I think Alucard will know that the writing is on the wall.
Speak your peace.
Again, trying to develop the best board that he can. Frost Lich Jaina is an incredible draw as well for Gambit. Previously, before having drawn that, he could have just played Alexstrasza, but leaves himself weaker to some sort of minion development, I suppose. Frost Lich Jaina not only puts him at a higher health total, but makes it so that he can start fighting back and presenting more threats than Alucard can play every turn. However, if Frost Lich Jaina comes down this turn, Gambit is still weak to Leroy Coldblood if it's in hand. So if he wants to be extra safe, he can play Alexstrasza to put himself back at 21.
What to do? What to do?
Currently 6 plus 2 damage. Represented for Alucard, the maximum burst would be Leroy Coldblood, because when Coldblood has already been used, I believe. So as long as Gambit is at higher health than 16, he doesn't have to be scared of that. Playing Alexstrasza, though, forgoes Frost Lich Jaina. And so Gambit is going to decide to take the Gambit this turn, risking the Leroy Coldblood combo, but making sure that if it's not here this turn, the game is 100% in his favor. And it's going to pay off because Alucard has still not drawn into that Leroy Jenkins. So for Alucard here, Ironbeak Owl sadly does not remove the lifesteal capability from the elemental because of the way the Frost Lich Jaina Death Knight is worded. And so I believe Alucard will just pile on Coldblood and Hench Clan Thug here and accept that this Frost Elemental is going to make his life very, very inconvenient. But the game will be closed out by Baron Geddon very soon. Doesn't even have to be Baron Geddon, even a Dragon's Fury. Okay, so Arcane Artificer plus Dragon's Fury puts him out of range of Leroy. If you are to play Baron Geddon here, you would remove only, you would still leave the Hench Clan Thug on board, because I assume the Frost Elemental would be trading into the Vilespine Slayer. But that would heal up Gambit for a huge amount.
I must decide.
So going for the ping on the 2-1 makes me think that Baron Geddon might not be coming down at all this turn. Well, okay. Yeah, I suppose this works as well. He could have done it the other way, like attack into the 8-4 and ping that and then play Baron Geddon. It comes out to the same thing. And yeah, that's all the outs gone for Alucard, and so he gives it up, and Gambit will be taking the first game. That's not an unexpected outcome because the big spell mage seems in general quite favored against Odd Rogue, and now Gambit still has to win with his Shudderwalk Shaman and Quest Warrior to keep going. His Q block was banned away, and it's kind of an interesting build of Q block. Oh, my mistake. It's not a Q block, but rather a control warlock, and that makes the ban make a lot more sense because that deck absolutely preys on 3 of these aggressive decks from Alucard. Indeed, Gambit has brought a very, very control-heavy lineup with the Shudderwalk Shaman in there to bust other control decks. For Alucard, aside from his Odd Rogue, he still has to win with his Even Lock and Midrange Hunter. His Token Druid was banned away. For those of you who are just joining us, you're watching the preliminary stages of the 18th Asian Games. This will be leading up to the main event at Jakarta, Indonesia later this year, and that event is kind of a run-up to the inclusion of esports in the 2022 Asian Games in China. So Gambit queuing up his Shudderwalk Shaman now up against the Midrange Hunter from Alucard. I honestly haven't seen too much of this matchup, but I'm thinking that the Shudderwalk Shaman should stand a pretty decent chance. Having cards like Volcano are very, very effective against Spellstones from the Hunter, and early game Lightning Bolts to deal with Animal Companions seems pretty effective as well. Midrange Shaman package from Alucard is including double Explosive Trap, 1 Freezing Trap, double Wandering Monster, and 1 Venom Strike Trap, which is the most common list that I've been seeing throughout this tournament. Most of the hunters brought that exact same secret package. The power of the deck relies on landing early Bear Sharks and highly buffed Spellstones, and if that doesn't work out, then Deathstalker Rexar can often pull out some unexpected win conditions. The early game was really not available for Alucard, though, missed both the Dire Mole and Crackling Razor Maw, which gives Gambit a lot of breathing room to just develop a Manatide Totem or Acolyte of Pain. Between those two, I'd more like to see, I suppose, 1 Acolyte coming down because it at least has attack to challenge certain... Actually, okay. The Manatide makes sense because both Acolyte and Manatide would be weak to Huffer anyway. The answer would still have to be a Lightning Bolt, so this is fine. Both of them are also weak to Eaglehorn Bow. Okay, the fact that Gambit, Alucard rolled Leok there makes Gambit regret not playing Acolyte a little bit, but the fact that the Manatide stuck is still a big deal. So I expect Gambit to just develop one of the Acolytes here and chill because Alucard missed most of his early game. Houndmaster coming on board now finally gives Alucard some sort of board presence, but I think he's forced to trade into the Acolyte to prevent more than 1 card draw. Alternatively, he could think about just leaving these minions on board and trying to overdraw Gambit, but it seems a little too cute. Okay, instead trading into the Manatide Totem. I'm not sure what the reasoning for that is, because if something like the Earth Shock were to come down onto the Leok, then the Acolyte would get one more draw than you would expect it to, whereas the Mana Tide, it's always going to get at least one draw. Unfortunately for Gambit, the Earth Shock makes the rest of his turn a little bit awkward. I suppose he could just play down another Acolyte. The other play of just Saronite Chain Gang represents some more stall, and I don't hate it. But going for Earth Shock means that he can maximize his draw, and that is what he's gonna do right here. And going for second Acolyte over Lightning Bolt on the Houndmaster, realizing that he's still at a very healthy life total. So funnily enough, Alucard has the potential to overdraw Gambit here by using Unleash the Hounds. It seems a little too cute though, so I prefer just this play of Freezing Trap and perhaps the Venom Strike Trap as well to fully buff up the Spellstone for the following turn. Because he played Freezing Trap, he doesn't need to worry about trading off the second Acolyte. Fitting in the hero power there. I guess he doesn't want to all in on the Spellstone because he might be vulnerable to something like Volcano. And now Gambit has to navigate these next few turns very carefully. He's now starting to take quite a bit of damage from that Houndmaster, and so Saronite Chain Gang makes a lot of sense just to prevent the damage for now, and Lightning Bolt to clear that off. Alucard most likely going to respond with his Spellstone now. Could have been buffed up a little bit more. So if he wants to go more greedy on that, he could instead go for Bear Shark and Venom Strike Trap at the moment. But it seems kind of slow. Right, going for this Spellstone here to best challenge the board from Gambit. And now Gambit, with no Volcano in hand, has to worry a little bit about how to deal with all these wolves. It seems like something just like Life Drinker and Glacial Shard could be decent here. Second Saronite Chain Gang's also okay, but all of those just die to value trades from the wolves, so I'd like to see the Life Drinker come down and challenge something. Zola the Gorgon presents an option to set up even more Saronite Chain Gangs, albeit weaker ones. But having that additional source of 1 damage could be useful with the way that the board state has panned out. Alucard will be able to take trades onto Saronite Chain Gangs and have his wolves at 1 health. Okay, just gonna be Life Drinker and Glacial Shard. He was hovering over it. I'm not sure if he wants to play it. Yeah, not a big reason not to go for it. And Alucard, this is probably the biggest Unleash the Hound he's gonna get aside from the post-Shudderwalk turn. Unleash the Hounds is very effective here. On top of that, he can play Bear Shark and Tracking. So if you're gonna do that, you should start with the Tracking. Going for that though means that you won't be able to fit in the hero power, which I think is something that Alucard is trying to prioritize. So maybe the play is more like Unleash the Hounds, Venom Strike Trap, and hero power. Regardless, the Hounds will be able to trade off both of the 2/1 minions. and allow for around 5 damage to be pushed face. I don't think Gambit has to be concerned, Alucard has to be concerned about trading off the life drinker too much, because it seems like a waste of damage because his board is weak to Volcano either way. But Alucard disagrees, instead gonna heft 3 damage away from the face in a very unhunter-like fashion. And the Volcano comes into hand now for Gambit. It is his only AoE though, and he hasn't seen second Spellstone yet, so he might hesitate a little bit about playing it. He can still stall more with second Saronite and Zola onto that Saronite. First, why is he gonna check for what the secret is? And now Gambit has to make a guess as to whether the second Spellstone is in hand for Alucard or not. That would pretty much spell doom if it is, and he expends the Volcano already. So I wouldn't mind just stalling a little bit more. Looks like Gambit is in favor of that. Second Spellstone coming into the hand for Alucard, but no secrets to buff it up. I expect the turn to start with... Okay, I was gonna say tracking, but going for Unleash the Hounds, Bear Shark, and Hero Power also fills out the mana nice and easy. 3 Hounds into one of the chain gangs, the Poison into the other chain gang, and then double Wolf's Face plus Hero Power and Bear Shark. Creates a very, very scary board. Gambit will almost certainly play the Volcano next turn.
Job done.
I misspoke about Zola the Gorgon a while ago. That's my bad. For some reason I thought it was the minion that creates a 1/1 copy into hand. It's not going to be a big deal here though, because the Hagatha draw is insane for Gambit. Clears off the whole board without him having to use Volcano. And now Alucard is running out of threats real quick. I assume he'd go for the second tracking here to try and draw into a secret to buff up the Spellstone, and then play the Spellstone for 3 wolves. He does have double kill command in hand though, so Daramol should be a little bit tempting because it provides him an easy way to buff up the kill commands. Explosive Trap gonna be the draw for Alucard here. I mean the secret option, but the other 2 options are also enticing because Eagle Horn Bow provides 6 more damage, almost guaranteed. It's a close one. Does he go for board development or pure burst? And actually going for Animal Companion as kind of a halfway hedge because it is minion damage and a 1 in 3 for burst. So if you know you're gonna get Huffer, it's a pretty good result. And now Gambit gotta be scared of this Huffer, and I think Healing Rain is guaranteed to come down this turn. Along with Lightning Storm, he would be able to clear off the Huffer as well. Or just going for Saronite Chain Gang makes a lot of sense. It's stall. It doesn't remove the beast for kill command buffs, but if he's playing Healing Rain anyway, he doesn't have to be too scared of that. Even just a Life Drinker would get him out of range of double kill command and hero power. So that is exactly what Gambit is gonna go for, and I think he has definitely turned the corner. Alucard now is not gonna be able to put on more minion pressure than Gambit can answer, and with the Healing Rain in hand, yeah, the clock is ticking real quick for Alucard. Of course, from Alucard's perspective, he feels that one hero power this turn can put Gambit in range of double kill command and hero power the next turn, but the healing rain will just seal the game. Lightning Storm also going to be very effective this turn. It's got a 50% chance on each minion to clear it. Whatever minions aren't cleared up can be fixed up by Earth Shock or a minion trade. And that clutch Hagatha draw was really what put Gambit so far ahead this game. So Gambit is going to be extremely safe, taking the worst stats trade to make sure that he retains a taunt on board in the case of another Huffer coming out. And gonna heal back up out of range of Darimul, Kill Command, and Hero Power. With the Rexar draw, Alucard might have some more stuff to keep fighting, but his hand is looking super light compared to Gambit's, and it's only a matter of time before Gambit can win, either if not with minion pressure, then with the Shudderwalk combo. So Alucard firing off his last steady shot of the game, and now gonna build a Zombeast, but I'm not really sure what kind of Zombeast can get him out of this one. He does have time though. So Vicious Fledgling plus something like a charge effect could be very powerful because he has Kill Command to push through the taunt. Even the stealth effect on an 8/8 Vicious Fledgling seems pretty good. That would make it immune to Hex. Oh, he didn't take the Vicious Fledgling option though. Instead has the Iron Beak Owl. So Gambit feeling very safe now, is free to just grumble here, and that's the effect that I was thinking of, making the minions cost 1 again. And Saturnic Chain Gang can be played once more. And really, this is just brutal.
Engaging TC-130 into dislocator.
Gambit being very precautious here, I guess, thinking if there's any way he can lose what is the most powerful zombies that can be played here. Does he ever need to save the mind control tech? The answer is no, though. He's very solidly ahead, and now he just needs to think about the best way to dump his cards because he was about to overdraw there. So Alucard gonna have to rely on a miracle Build-A-Beast here. I don't really see it though. Maybe Jeweled Macaw could put some more value into the hand. But there's too much minion pressure coming from the Grumble on the other side of the board, and no way for Alucard to clear it with these options. Vicious Scale Hide, if he had taken the highest statted minion on the first choice, might be able to stall a bit longer. Yeah, looks like that's what he got. So Gambit has any number of ways to deal with this Life Drinker. I assume he'd want to save the Hex in case some really, really threatening Zombeast comes out the next turn. Okay, just gonna play out the Frost Chalk and build up some more minion pressure, try and set up a 2-turn lethal. Gambit thinking about whether he should proc this secret because it could be second explosive trap, and that means he would have to give up his second taunt. I mean, give up his one remaining taunt and then make himself vulnerable to a charging Zombeast and kill commands. So that's why he attacks with the Grumble into the Wandering Monster. Gambit taking every precaution, but I feel like there might have been a way to do that a bit more efficiently. So what beast comes out of the box this time? King Mukla seems decent because it can overdraw Gambit on the next turn. It's also, of course, just the best statted minion among these options. If you play Mukla and kill command onto the Grumble, then you're actually challenging the board pretty well. Argument for exploding Boat Bat is to kill off those two weaker minions, I guess, from Alucard, and those two minions from Gambit. And Alucard actually took the Boat Bat. I was really excited to see the Mukla there and overdraw the Shudder Walk. That would have been epic. Still don't know if it would have been enough to help Alucard win the game with all the value that's in Gambit's hand, but okay. Still no Shudder Walk in sight for Gambit, but he's very solidly ahead still. The Boat Bat with Stealth is a little bit scary because Gambit should have a pretty good read that there's two kill commands in hand for Alucard there. Those two cards have not been played all game, and so he needs to be aware of 16 points of damage. At 19, it's not too scary yet. The additional 3 damage could come from an Eagle Horn Bow though, so I can see the reasoning for freezing the face from Alucard. Gonna chuck one of these lava bursts towards the face already. Realizing that with one taunt in hand on board, he still doesn't have to worry about kill command, Eagle Horn Bow, because at least some of that damage would have to run into the Saronite Chain Gang, and the Death Rattle Totem could also be a taunt totem. So for Alucard here, he's almost for sure going to silence the Saronite Chain Gang. He now has to worry about his own health total. Unfortunately, he is 1 mana short of being able to go for Adapt plus Zombeast plus Kill Command, which could have presented lethal. And these are among the worst choices. I guess you take Death Rattle here. Kill command. One of them going to be fired off onto the Grumble. Makes sense because Alucard's scared of his health total being compromised at this point. And Alucard, yeah, I was going to question the Houndmaster if it came down there because it makes the board really weak to Volcano, and it makes it so that he wouldn't have had the chance to put in any minion damage. So, with no time on the hero power, he instead picks up just a random Zombeast pretty much, and Shudderwalk enters the hand for Gambit, but no mana to play it yet, so all he has to do now is stall and not overload too much, and the game is his. So he can go for double trades onto the 3/2s and just hex away that Zombeast. Kalaseth near the bottom of the deck. Not too relevant though, even though he didn't get the buff earlier on. Gambit has been solidly ahead almost this entire game, ever since Hagatha got drawn. So the zombies gets turned into a frog, which is gonna be earth shocked away for good measure, removing a beast target for Alucard to Houndmaster. And I'm not even sure what this Cave Hydra does. It has taunt. Okay, so it's a decent sized taunt, and maybe Alucard can hope that there is no second Hex yet in hand for Gambit, and that no Hex was generated by Hagatha. It's a very, very slim hope, but Alucard hoping for whatever out he can get at this point. Maybe he's thinking about whether he can win off Fatigue, but it's impossible. Shudderwalk was still in the deck, so... If he takes the Stone Tusk Boar, I'm not sure what the first minion he took was, but that is some burst combined with Kill Command, and with Houndmaster, it is a decent chunk of damage. So Alucard just gonna go face with that, hope that there's no other Hex in hand for Gambit yet, but not only is there Hex, there is Healing Rain, and there is Shudderwalk. That is pretty much gonna seal out the game one way or another if Gambit really wants to make it absolutely excruciating for Alucard. Yeah, I can just go for the Rain and Hex here. Both these players taking every precaution to make sure that there is no way, well, in Gambit's case, to make sure that there's no way he can lose, and in Alucard's case, to make sure that he spots every single out there is. The window is growing slimmer and slimmer for Alucard. So what will the Zombeast be this time? Has to be some kind of large charge, I suppose, that can also be paired with the Houndmaster. Cave Hydra plus charge, if he gets it, might give some way to stall off the board, but then he's just dead to Shudderwalk. From his perspective, both, two hexes have been played. The second hex was generated off of Hagatha, so Alucard knows there's at least still one hex. For Gambit, still just gonna hope that this is enough though. Man, this is excruciating that Gambit doesn't have minion-based lethal yet, but he can guarantee it slowly but surely. Okay, so two life drinkers definitely gonna get played, and that will close out the game in a few more seconds, hopefully. Okay, there you go. Gambit 2-0 to Alucard, and he did take what I feel like were two favorable matchups though, so not a huge surprise there, and now he only has to win with his Quest Warrior. The Control Warlock was banned away And this warrior could struggle a little bit against the hunter, but it has some decent matchups against the token druid with all of the whirlwind effects that it runs. Double warpath and blood razor, of course, staples of the deck, and brawl on top of it. Alucard still can't quite get a win with this mid-range hunter, and aside from that, he's got to win with the odd rogue and even warlock. Both the players, despite not having any HCT main circuit appearances, showing some high familiarity with the decks that they've brought. It's always good to see that other countries that we might not necessarily expect there to be a Hearthstone scene in, the game is actually thriving. So it's going to be the even warlock for Alucard up against the quest warrior from Gambit. I do think this was Alucard's best shot at winning the match, so he's just going to try and gain that momentum back. Early turns for both these decks are very uneventful. I wouldn't hate just playing up the cornered sentry here. There's not much that an even warlock can do with a bunch of 1/1s. They don't run any minion buff effects. And because Gambit has stuff to do on the following turns, it makes sense. Alucard probably just gonna keep tapping, hope to land those early mountain giants, which can be the real kicker in this matchup and in so many other matchups. Acolyte pairing up really well with the cornered sentry, actually, although Alucard is for sure just gonna suicide these raptors, make sure that the Acolyte doesn't get any more draws than it's supposed to. Doomsayer very well timed this turn. Unfortunately for Alucard, the hand is too large for him to fit in another tap, but he should be happy with this Doomsayer getting so much value anyway. Gambit gonna cash in double warpaths to get at least 2 draws from the Acolyte. And double Stonehill coming into hand, it makes it so that the quest is very much gonna be full of fuel throughout the next few turns. Each of those put together represent another 4 taunts, and the Tar Creeper is a 5th, so Gambit essentially only has to draw 1 more taunt to complete the quest. Now Alucard still quite a ways off from being able to develop that Lich King, and no mountain giants in hand makes things really scary. So that is the last taunt needed for Gambit, so now he just needs to try and get the cheapest available taunts from the Stonehill Defender, make sure that quest gets done ASAP. And another cornered sentry seems like it fits the bill.
Nice little raptors.
Expect Alucard just to dump as many minions as he can. Well, maybe just 2, and then tap, try to get a mountain giant still. He wants to save the coin for as early as possible of a Gul'dan. So plated beetle plus vulgar homunculus gonna be the play. Trades are pretty straightforward. And Gambit can do some simple math. 3 plus 3 is the taunts that he can play next turn. If he gains another cheap taunt, even just with the Phantom Militia, that guarantees that he'll have the quest activated by turn 8. Twilight Drake coming into the hand for Alucard, although I expect this turn he'd just want to play down the Dread Infernal as the heftiest minion available to him, but unfortunately that makes it so that the Hooked Reaver doesn't survive a value trade with one of those Phantom Militia. So it might be that he just plays the Dread Infernal and doesn't trade away the Hooked Reaver, but then that makes the Reaver weak to Whirlwind effects. So is there an argument for just playing the Twilight Drake instead?
So many possibilities.
I still like the Dread Infernal play better. Dread Infernal and then bump in your Vulgar Homunculus into the 2-3. But instead going for the Twilight Drake and just gonna take 2 easy trades on these Phantom Militia. Alright, gonna be the quest activation for sure for Gambit here, but because of the timing for Alucard, it's kind of an awkward turn to finish the quest because he's leaving so much damage on board for Alucard on really fragile minions that are gonna be guaranteed to trade up. But that's not the main concern for Gambit here, he just really wants to get the quest down ASAP. He can do so with Cornered Sentry and Dry Whisker, that classic combo for insane amounts of armor gain. And the power of Brawl, gonna be fixing this board up the next turn, clearing the way for Sulfuras to start ragging up the board. So Alucard just trying to set up the best board for, I believe, a Dread Infernal. Oh, actually just gonna go for Lich King here. Makes a lot of sense as well. It's even more of a threat on board, and Alucard hasn't had enough relevant demons to die yet that he's rushing to play Gul'dan on 9. It is a little bit unfortunate that both these minions are really weak to rag shots though. So expect to see the Sulfuras plus the Button plus Tar Creeper come down. Alright, so Gambit actually prioritizing 1 armor gain as opposed to putting down a Tar Creeper, which is a bit interesting to me. Alucard wanting to go wide to try and protect his Lich King, but he has to be aware that there should be at least 1 Brawl in hand for Gambit this far into the game. So he's stuck between a rock and a hard place, but the threats from Gambit are running out pretty quick, so if Alucard can just get a little bit lucky with where these rag shots land, he can curve out into Gul'dan pretty well and then try and outlast all of the pressure. Alright, the middling result for Gambit, and I think he did want this rag shot to go face because Alucard is at such a low health total now, and Gambit is very safely at 38. Alright, I assume the second Brawl might be coming out very soon here. Alternatively, Slam plus Blood Razor can clear off that Sun Fury Protector. Second Brawl might want to be saved for the post Gul'dan turn. Or not. Gambit wants this damage to go into face and stat. Okay, doesn't quite land the face damage, and now Gul'dan gonna make Gambit's life real hard here. I think Gambit is wishing that he had saved that Brawl. It's actually not that many demons that died, but it's still enough that Brawl could have been better used, I suppose. And okay, for Gambit, he can go again, slam Blood Razor. It's not the most efficient use of mana though, because you want to definitely be pressing the button every single turn. So maybe the play is Blood Razor, Serenite Chain Gang, and then Hero Power, because you can use the Razor and the Tar Creeper attack to clear off the Homunculus. With the draw of Execute, this makes the play a lot more enticing. So now you can execute the Dread Infernal and make the Rag Shot a 50-50 to go face. Okay, instead chooses to save the Execute. I'm unsure why, because aside from Mountain Giants, all the biggest threats have been played from the Even Warlock deck already. So Alucard, having seen Double Brawl come out, should know that it's time to just go as wide as possible on board. So he can do that with double Shroom Brewer. He can even Shroom Brewer his own Blood Reaver to, Hook Reaver to take a value trade onto the Tar Creeper. Doesn't go for it though. I guess it kind of works out similarly because double Shroom Brewer healing cancels out one Rag Shot to face. Whereas healing your Hooked Reaver is weak to the Blood Razor just ticking off with the Death Rattle, so yeah. Scourge Lord Garrosh, of course, a very, very awkward play when you've already got the Quest Hero Power online. Makes me question the inclusion of it in the deck, but of course if you draw that before your quest is online, it's very effective, so just gotta get a bit lucky with the way the cards are arranged in the deck. Alucard can keep putting minions on board now without fear of Brawl, and just kind of buffer the Rag Shot damage away from his face. Tainted Zealot and Vulgar Homunculus seems like a decent play. Okay, deciding to forego the Zealot, I guess because of the Blood Razor Death Rattle. Rag Shot's still not hitting the face for Gambit here, but with the draw of Phantom Militia, it's pretty good for some stall. Zealot plus Death and Decay, really, really effective here. It allows Alucard to push some much needed minion damage, and suddenly Alucard seems like he's pulling way ahead here with the double Hellfire, especially if this Tainted Zealot sticks and his own Suck Hero Power. Alucard has quite a bit of burst, 11 points, should the Hellfires remain buffed. Gambit finally gonna cash in and execute. I do think he could have done that quite a bit earlier. Mountain Giant joining the party super late, but it's still a welcome sight for Alucard because it is some more minion damage, and it's gonna die to the execute after this Blood Razor hits onto the Vulgar Homunculus though. And then Gambit has a 1 in 3 to try and land the Rag Shot to the face. That is the absolute worst result there. I really think that it should have been an attack first. After gaining the armor with the Dry Whisker, get rid of the homunculus using your golem, and then go for the Blood Razor onto the Tainted Zealot. Then the Death Rattle would clear it up, and the Execute hits the Giant, and that would have guaranteed the Rag Shot to the face, if I'm not mistaken. So that was a really sloppy turn from Gambit.
My hunger grows.
Alucard in a really rough spot now. He can play Doom Pact to get rid of this damage on board, and then follow it up with... Ooh, the burn of Mountain Giant is really rough for Alucard there. Minion pressure almost entirely gone now. Playing out the Acolyte there. I guess he doesn't have to be too afraid of fatigue yet, still 7 cards. And now it's just a race between the hero powers. I actually think that Alucard wins this, because whether or not the Rag Shot hits the face, he will guaranteed land a hero power next turn, which will put Gambit to 8. And then the next hero power in double Hellfire will seal out the game. Yeah, even if Alucard had 8 less health here, he still wouldn't be in danger of dying to second Rag Shot and the Acolyte hit. So I think Gambit might have just thrown this game. Use of the Hellfire, one of them at least, to buff up the Spellstones. Doesn't make a huge difference because I think both Dry Whisker have been played. And no more form of armor game for Gambit unless he wants to play this Death Knight, but that essentially... Actually, the play should have been the Death Knight there, wasn't it? Because that at least gives him a weapon for additional damage and puts him out of range of second Hellfire and hero powers, so... Gambit, I really think this game could have been played a lot better from his end, but congratulations to Alucard putting the first win on the board here. Still has quite a ways to go with his Rogue needing to pull out a win, as well as that mid-range Hunter, which we saw struggling earlier on in this series. Could be a bit of nerves getting to Gambit. I'm not sure how active the Hearthstone scene is within the respective countries of these two players, but neither of them has had any HCT appearances in tour stops that I'm aware of, or in playoffs. So might be that these players are unused to playing on a bigger stage or on stream. And that's very much natural. We see even the most experienced pros messing up sometimes. Nerves can get to everyone. So another try with the Quest Warrior for Gambit, and now Alucard's queuing up the Odd Rogue, and this is a really abysmal matchup for the Odd Rogue, which is so weak to all these forms of Whirlwind-based removal from the Quest Warrior, and also just the Wall of Taunts very much staunches all of that aggression pretty efficiently. The best way of the Taunt Rogue has to kind of combat that is the double Vile Spine Slayer, which timed well can easily swing the game.
Nice little raptors.
Okay, Cornered Sentry coming on board. Makes it a little bit scarier to just coin out a Vicious Fledgling here. Okay, I don't think Gambit has to really overreact to this though. Something like Trade and Execute would be way too much of an overreaction, so I do like just going for the Tar Creeper here. There's no good way to remove a Tar Creeper this early on in the game for the Odd Rogue, so makes a lot of sense. The Deadly Poison to clear off the Cornered Sentry also is the most natural play. You would think about just developing another 3-drop there, but you have to realize that the Tar Creeper is actually not presenting much of a threat at all to the Vicious Fledgling, so I like that. Just probably gonna be a Stonehill Defender here for Gambit. If you play Cornered Sentry, you're giving Alucard a way to get through the Tar Creeper without using his Vicious Fledgling. Gambit could go for an early execute, but I really don't like the play. Probably just gonna be... I was gonna say probably just Ascension here, but Primordial Drake can actually be a huge factor. It's just that Gambit doesn't have too many minions to play in the following turns that I think that the Ascension is the safest play. And generally the warrior just wants to survive and hold off the threats. They don't have to be too greedy with the taunts. They can just run the rogue out of threats. Okay, the minions. 2 of the scariest 3-drops in the game right now, both on board for Alucard. The board is set up very nicely for Alucard such that he can just go Dagger and Deadly Poison and trade with the Dire Maul to get rid of that Tar Creeper the next turn and hit face with both of these. But with the draw of Warpath, that makes things a lot easier for Gambit. He can now Warpath and execute one of these minions. If he had 1 more mana, it could have been an extremely good turn with Cornered Sentry Warpath execute. Unfortunately, the way the damage lines up, it's going to be kind of awkward. He won't be able to clear the other either the Vicious Fledgling or the Hench Clan Thug, and only execute one of them. So that's why you play Senjin there. This turn, however, lines up really nicely for Alucard with Deadly Poison and the Dire Maul attack. He can take a value trade with the Hench Clan Thug onto the other 3/5 and finally breach the face with the Vicious Fledgling. And is it going to be a Wind Fury? There it is. So additional health or stealth here could be decent. Even can't be targeted prevents the Vicious Fledgling from dying to an execute, so I like the pick here. And Gambit looking in a bit of a rough spot now. Alucard wisely holding back on the Fireflies to hedge around Brawl. If Brawl were to come down here, either minion surviving would still be a decent result for Alucard. So triple Warpath, unfortunately gonna make Alucard's day very sad. It is the perfect answer for this board. And Alucard is running out of threats. The refill is looking like just double Fireflies and SA7 agent, which don't really represent too much damage. Baku as the last card Alucard wanted to see. He does have quite a bit of burst building up though with these dagger attacks piling up, and then Leroy Jenkins in hand, of course. He might be just 1 Cold Blood or a couple of Cold Blood draws away from closing out the game soon. Gambit not okay, no Dry Whisker in hand to help him gain back the armor, but he still has quite a bit of taunts and stall for the meantime. The Wax Elemental is the cheapest option, but I kind of like the Felsoul Inquisitor just because it is the best use of his mana this turn. Even Direhorn Hatchling, always a decent card, but it seems a little slow. Felsoul Inquisitor, aside from just being an annoying minion that provides him some health gain, will also damage any minions that run into it exactly enough that they can be executed. Okay, Fungal Mancer, insanely good draw for Alucard here. He might just choose to go for Flame Elemental and Valspine Slayer though. Because Fungal Mancer buffing up the SI7 agent still doesn't make it strong enough to get rid of the Fel Soul Inquisitor on its own. And so, with the way the damage lines up, there'll be at least one minion surviving for Gambit with this play. But I guess Alucard thinks that the Vilespine can find a more powerful target later on, which makes sense because both these taunts have only one attack. Unfortunately, one attack is all that Gambit needs to execute things.
So many options. I must choose soon.
So because the Fel Soul Inquisitor wasn't Vilespined, it also means that Alucard will be gaining a little bit more health back. I'm not sure how relevant that will be, but given that Alucard is running out of threats real fast and needs the Leroy to close out the game, every single point of damage matters here. So with the draw of Blood Razor, that makes the Cornered Sentry real powerful here. Execute can come down onto the SA7 agent. Felsoul Inquisitor can clean up the Fungal Mancer, and that will be a full board clear for Gambit here, and Alucard looking like he's in a real rough spot now. So the play will just probably be triple Firefly things and Vilespine Slayer here. It's not even a full board clear if you Vilespine the Cornered Sentry. And Sulfuras is already active for Gambit, so I'm thinking that Alucard has been just locked out of this. After the Felsoul Inquisitor dies though, that will be the last taunt either on board or in hand for Gambit, so this might provide an opportunity for Alucard to push through with Leroy. Also the Sulfuras, I was gonna say Sulfuras had a lot of junk in the way of it hitting face, but with the Warpath draw and combined with Blood Razor, this could be pretty good. It might be that Gambit doesn't even need to expend his Blood Razor charge here. He can just go for, after trading the he will use the Blood Razor because Sulfuras is coming down anyway. So the Felsoul Inquisitor always goes into the Valspine Slayer, and then he can attack into it with the Blood Razor. Okay, instead going for Acolyte here and guaranteeing that he draws some more cards also makes a lot of sense here. There's any number of ways that Gambit can go for this clear. Looks like he's just not gonna play Sulfuras this turn yet. Yeah, I do think that could have been done better if he had traded the Fel Soul into the Vilespine instead of going face with it. Then the Blood Razor wouldn't have had to land into the Vilespine, and Gambit could have taken a bit less damage, but either way, he's still in a really good spot. Safe from Leroy and Cold Blood. And he will have the 50-50 to get rid of this Baku. Even if it doesn't land on Baku, he has a bunch of taunts that can get in the way. And that pretty much spells the end for Alucard, I believe. Dark Creeper, SA7 agent, and Dagger to clear off one of the Saturday Night Chain Gangs. It's gonna be too little too late.
So many options.
Gambit won't quite have the lethal guaranteed yet. Because assuming that... Oh, okay. If Alucard daggers down one of the Saranite chain gangs, then there will be lethal available, so Alucard should just go face with the SI7 agent, because it's quite likely that second execute is in hand for Gambit, I'd say. He realizes he's so far behind that he's got to take the risk though, and okay, not quite guaranteed lethal because the SI7 agent places another minion on a board. He does have 50-50 though. So Chain Gang goes into the Tar Creeper and execute it, but Gambit not willing to take the risk here. I guess this is even safer because if he just goes about it this way, he doesn't ever die. So Leroy and Cold Blood as well.
I give up.
And that will just be the game, going to Gambit 3-1. Congratulations. I do think he played a little bit sloppy in some of those games, but again, not all these players are necessarily experienced playing on stream, and so it can cause a bit of nerves, but with the lineup preparation and the majority of his play, I do think Gambit definitely is a worthy representative of his country. That is not the last you'll be seeing of Alucard though, because this is a round-robin format tournament within each region, and we'll be going into more games throughout Central Asia very soon. Don't go anywhere, and we got the next game for you guys coming up. Welcome back everybody to the Hearthstone tournament of the esports regional qualifiers for the 18th Asian Games. I'm Gia and I'll be your caster for this next match between Gambit and Falcon Seric. We are in the group stages still, and this is the Central Asian group. And for those of you who are just joining us, in these preliminary stages, the groups are arranged by regions within Asia. So aside from Central Asia, we've got West Asia, Southeast Asia, and East Asia. The Asian Games are organized by the Asian Esports Federation, or AESF. And if you want to learn more about them, you can go check out their website at aesf.com. This whole preliminary stage will be leading up to a main event in Jakarta, Indonesia later on this year. And that whole event will be a run-up towards the full inclusion of esports on the same level as traditional sports at the 2022 Asian Games in China. So looking at these two players, I am honestly not too familiar with either of them. Central Asia has not been the best well-represented country or region in the main Hearthstone circuit, but it's great to see that the Hearthstone scene is very much alive over there. So Gambit is going to lead off with his Quest Warrior up against the Taunt Druid from Falcon Seric. Falcon Seric is from Turkmenistan, which is where the Asian Games were held last year, whereas Gambit is from Kyrgyzstan, I believe. So this matchup tends to favor the Taunt Druid just because the large minions are very difficult to deal with for the Quest Warrior, which only has the double executes. And once the Hadronox comes down, and gets its death rattle off, there's only 2 brawls for the Quest Warrior, but there's many ways for the Taunt Druid to bring back the Hadronox with Cube or perhaps with Witching Hour, and the removals simply aren't enough from the Warrior. Although the early stages in the matchup are very slow, the ramp has not been available for Falcon Seric, unfortunately. And for Gambit, no taunts quite yet. Of course, he chooses to play Acolyte over the Phantom Militia, which could provide more than one taunt later on. So Oaken Summon's gonna pull out the first Ironwood Golem. and prevent the Acolyte from getting an additional damage.
Out of my jungle!
And Stonehill off the top is a very welcome draw for Gambit. I assume he'll just take the Senjin next turn. For a play next turn, I mean. Starry Night Chain Gang is also a consideration, but it doesn't really challenge the Ironwood Golem very well. I wonder if it's ever Stubborn Gastropod then.
What now?
It might eat up a Spellstone from the Druid. At the very least. And he actually does just go for the snail. Nourish coming into the hand for Falcon Sarek, a very welcome draw for next turn. Tar Creeper, not always an automatic inclusion in Taunt Druid anymore. A lot of people argue that it's actually not very good because you don't want it diluting your post-Hadronox taunt pool, but many people preferring to include it also because of its synergy with Master Oakheart. Alright, so Nourish for ramp plus Spellstone will easily get rid of that Stubborn Gastropod, and then Tar Creeper can clean up the Stonehill Defender, and the Ironwood Golem can make sure that the Acolyte only gets one draw. Nice and clean for Falcon Sarek here, and with the Hadronox in hand, he now wants to make sure that he can draw into Lich King, which is the premium taunt that you want to get off of the Hadronox revivals, and a big reason why the warrior will struggle against the minion pressure off of the Taunt Druid. So Gambit, he has the option to go for double Phantom Militia already, and then the following turn can do another 2 Phantom Militia to finish off the quest, so this makes... sorry, he will still lack 1 more taunt in that case, but every turn that he gets closer to completing the quest is very crucial, because definitely the Taunt Warrior has to be rushing towards that quest as soon as possible in this matchup. Try to get as many rag shots to the face as possible before Hadronox can come down. So Slam can be used for additional card draw. It might be double Phantom Militia this turn so that he has that out of the way and then can play Scourge Lord Garrosh. The following turn you definitely want the Garrosh to come down before you finish the quest, so you don't replace your Rag Hero power. Just to guarantee that the quest can be finished by turn 9 though, I wouldn't mind holding on to the Militia. So this turn might just be some form of card draw.
Never end. Our witch shall never end.
Alright, bumping into the Primordial Drake, realizing that the Tar Creeper isn't much of a threat. And this way, it makes it so that even if the Primordial Drake were to trade into 1 Phantom Militia, it can be cleared off by the Scourge Lord Garrosh weapon on the following turn. So Falcon Sarek not going for the draw first. And also has placed his minions in such a way that Scourge Lord Garrosh will take less damage by attacking the Tar Creeper in the middle. It's not gonna be too big of a deal though.
And rule its ash.
Okay, Gambit really hoping to draw into a taunt next turn to finish up the quest. Not a big reason to not trade the Phantom Militia there. There's an argument for leaving it up there and forcing Falcon Sarge to make the trade, but it kind of cancels out. Harrison, pretty brutal here, removing the best weapon in the warrior arsenal. Still no Lich King in hand though, so Falcon Sarek not too eager to play Haginox quite yet. He has many chances to draw into it quite soon though.
Job done.
Okay, so it's all about whether Gambit can get a taunt this turn. If not off the top, he could have slammed, but there is the Saronite Chain Gang available right now.
Let the pain speak to me.
Actually choosing to go for additional card draw instead. By going for it this way, he maximizes the draw, delaying the quest one turn. Which I don't mind too much because using that hero power before it gets replaced, making sure that he has enough to do once the quest does get activated. So Falcon Sarah gonna forgo the Lich King plan and just play out the Hadronox right now. He still has a decent amount of taunts in the pool, and later on he'll be able to maybe draw into Lich King and then revive it off of Hadronox and Witching Hour. And Falcon Sarek gonna be a little bit scared of Brawl once the Hadronox gets its Death Rattle activated. However, there is no silence from the deck of Gambit, so Falcon Sarek does not have to naturalize his Hadronox quite yet. So I wonder what Gambit is waiting for. He could have guaranteed activated the quest, played Sulfuras, and used hero power, but he instead went for shield block, and then fortunately he drew into an even cheaper taunt, so he could still do all of that, but I'm not sure why he was in such a risk to shield block there.
I must choose.
The very awkward thing about this is that he doesn't want the Hadronox to die quite yet, and so he doesn't want to hero power, but you need the hero power to win the game in this matchup. Maybe Gambit is thinking of some alternative fatigue-based plan, but he's not so far ahead on the card draw that he can go for that, I think. Now Falcon Sarek will be able to cube this Hadronox after it bumps into one of these minions for maximum damage. And Witching Hour is also in the hand for Falcon Sarek, so the onslaught of taunt minions will be beginning very soon. Witching Hour can bring back Hadronox immediately, of course, and make the board a little bit more resistant to Brawl. So Falcon Sarek going for the branching paths this early on seems a bit weird to me because he hasn't seen any brawls yet. You'd rather save the branching paths for when it's your turn and you're able to attack with your minions already, so as a form of burst. And it might be that he just wasted that branching paths because this board is definitely going to blow up to Brawl quite soon. Gambit would want to... there's no way for Gambit to do this cleanly though, because should any minion but the cube survive, 2 Hadronoxes will be popping out, and then the problem repeats itself. And such is the reason why the Taunt Druid is so favored in this matchup. Only 2 Brawls can't stand up to 6 or 7 Hadronoxes. So still a very scary board for Falcon Sarek here. And try as I might, I don't think I can find any out for Gambit here. Unless he can somehow guarantee that this rag shot will always hit face and never hit a Hadronox. You would have to be like Joey Wheeler to get that to happen though. But this is not that game.
Warriors of the frozen wastes, arise.
So Falcon Sarek can chill here. Doesn't need to think very much from this point on. Just developing the Lich King adds another threat on. He's not scared about extending into second brawl because if second brawl happens, then a bunch more taunts pop out and then there's no way for Gambit to clear the rest of the board. So it seems like it is checkmate, although it could still be a few more turns before this ends in an actual lethal. So checking out the rest of the lineups, Gambit has something of a slower lineup. He's got a Shudderwalk Shaman, a Big Spell Mage, and a Control Warlock. Not a Q block, aside from this Quest Warrior. As for Falcon Sarek, he's got his own Big Spell Mage, and an Odd Paladin, and a mid-range Hunter.
Time passes.
And it seems like that Odd Paladin might struggle a little bit against this Quest Warrior and the Control Lock. However, the Taunt Druid has a pretty good time against all these decks from Gambit.
What now?
How long can this go on? How long can this go on?
Gambit just gonna try and delay the inevitable for a bit longer, even if you were going for a fatigue game plan and somehow infinite armor gain. The fatigue is even for both of these players, so I'm just not seeing it. Falcon Sarek really does not need to develop anything else here. Doesn't need to draw, doesn't need to play out another Hadronox because it defeats the point. Because he already has a brawl resistant board. Anti-magic shell will definitely close out the game. Gambit can stall again with brawl and dry whisker, I guess, or just dry whisker. He actually hits the best target by going face there, but Falcon Sarek has a whole fortress of armor protecting him. I think Gambit should realize there is no way out from this point. Maybe taking that additional time to think about what he should queue up next. Against the Big Spell Mage, this Quest Warrior is very favored, so he should feel pretty good about that. It also has a good chance against Odd Paladin, so no matter what deck Falcon Sarek queues up next, Gambit should have a good shot with the Quest Warrior.
I must choose.
Gambit has set up a board in such a way that double Warpath next turn can clear the Hadronoxes and then he can brawl whatever comes out, but Falcon Sarek has the Witching Hour to deal with it. And refill, so props to Gambit for trying his very best to outlast the Taunt Druid, but you just can't do that when they have so many minions. Falcon Sarek again going for the buff when it's really not necessary and when the board is already weak to brawl. This is a worrisome pattern, I gotta say, but the matchup being so heavily in his favor, it is really not gonna matter. So there is a chance for a full clear if the Rag Shot hits a 1 in 8 onto the Hadronox and then brawl happens, and then let's say like something really weak like a Tar Creeper survives, and then Gambit can clear it with Sulfurous and Warpath, but really Witching Hour, not enough against Witching Hour. 22 damage on board for Falcon Seric. If he had held on to that anti-magic shell, he would have had the lethal here. Not that it really matters, he wins either way. But yeah, I do think it is some basic Hearthstone knowledge that you shouldn't be buffing up a board unless you're protecting it. I mean, on a turn that you can't attack yet, unless you're protecting it from the AoE from the opponent. And Brawl disregards health totals, so... quite a blowout matchup.
What now?
It's just not that much to say. The game has been over for several turns, I gotta say, but Gambit really trying to squeeze out whatever annoyance he can from Falcon Seric, I suppose.
Time passes. Out of my I must choose.
Gotta say, Gambit is really reminding me of certain players on ladder that are very annoying to run into, roping when the game has long passed over. But you can't discount this as a technique in Hearthstone. I mean, in competitive tournaments, if you can do anything to tilt your opponent just that little bit more, it can help gain you maybe even a fraction of a percent in your next game. And there's no rule that says you can't rope every turn, unfortunately, so... that is going to be game 1 to Falcon Seric from Turkmenistan. Gambit still has quite a lot of fight in him. I think this Quest Warrior is well placed against both the remaining decks from Falcon Seric, so the game could be going up to a 1-1 score real soon. The Shudderwalk Shaman from Gambit also has a really good matchup against the Big Spell Mage from Falcon Seric. Any slow deck that has primarily AoE allows the Shudderwalk Shaman time to complete the full combo. It's the Odd Paladin that the Shudderwalk Shaman might struggle a little bit against. However, Gambit's Even Lock and the Control Warrior should make quick work of it. So I think it's a matter of whether Falcon Seric can sneak in a win with this Odd Paladin against the Shaman from Gambit before the Shaman can take a win against the Control Mage. Looking at the banned decks, Falcon Seric actually brought a Cube Hunter, which was banned out because it does have very good matches against all these slow decks from Gambit, and Gambit's own Control Mage was banned out because it preys quite heavily on the Odd Paladin, I suppose. For those of you who are just joining us, we are in the group stages of the 18th Asian Games. The groups are arranged by the different regions in Asia, so we are in the Central Asian group right now. A region that I gotta say isn't so well known in the Hearthstone scene, so it's good to see that Hearthstone is still alive in these different countries. And I hope that these players with this experience in the tournament will be inspired to try and qualify in the main HCT circuit as well. Notable players on the other end of the tournament include Surrender representing South Korea over in the East Asian group, and HQ Roger representing Taiwan. Also got a lot of HDG anchors and members of their teams playing over in the Southeast Asian group, like this guy from Thailand, Gilgamesh from Malaysia, and Tuan from Vietnam. representing China is Jason Zhou, who is one of the most well-known players from that country. So this tournament is actually quite star-studded, and it's good to see that newer players like Gambit or Falcon Seric are getting a chance to prove themselves later on in the tournament against more established Hearthstone players. It's not to say that these two are necessarily new to the scene, I just haven't heard of them, but who knows, they could have been playing Hearthstone ever since beta. Among the decks that have been brought to the tournament, we're actually seeing quite a bit of mid-range Hunter, I think, or at least more than I expected, although some of the most common brings are Even Shaman and Odd Paladin, and Q-Block of course, and very many varieties of Druid. I've seen Malagos Druid, Taunt Druid, and Token Druid, and it's quite similar to what we've seen throughout more recent tour stops and Hearthstone tournaments, where the meta is very much still in flux. So many different archetypes for all the classes available, and so it makes it very difficult to construct a conquest lineup in which you usually try to just target one deck. You can't really do that, so you end up bringing decks that you feel are the best overall in the field. So game 2, gonna be Falcon Seric on the big Spell Mage up against the Quest Warrior on a second try from Gambit. And this matchup is generally heavily favored for the Quest Warrior because at some point after the quest has been completed, they can just stop playing minions, and so the mage can't generate more water elementals off their Death Knight. And then the warrior from that point on can just keep pressing their hero power button on the empty board and eventually burn the mage down with enough rag shots. So it's up to the mage to try and somewhat scrape together what little pressure they can in the early game, perhaps get a well-timed Alexstrasza off into an early Jaina and try to win with the water elemental initial pressure. It's very unlikely though, because the Quest Warrior, the whole deck is centered around a lower curve of taunt minions so that they can get the quest off as soon as possible. The mage almost always guaranteed, I think always guaranteed to win. Okay, the only situation where the Raven Familiar doesn't win the joust there is when the warrior rolls Brawl and the mage rolls Polymorph, I guess. Very unlikely. Not that it's a big deal because this AoE from the mage is not gonna do very much against a rag hero power. So if Gambit can just play down taunts consistently, then the game should be very much in his favor.
How long can this go on? How long can this go on?
Counter going off nice and steady. Falcon Seric was hovering over his Dragon's Fury there, but that also removes his own minion pressure, which is not the best feeling. If only he had one more mana to play Blizzard, and then the next turn he could ping off something and try to get minion damage to the face. Not gonna happen though, and Gambit is not too upset at all. He's still very happy to just play down the taunts and stall up until the quest is done. Although just playing Harrison Jones here wouldn't be too awful, I guess, either. It's on an empty board, it's got a decent chunk of attack.
Nice little
But Gambit realizes that the name of the game is finish the quest ASAP. Falcon Seric gonna take this opportunity to try and clear the board with Doomsayer, but again, it is really just futile to prevent minion damage when you don't have aggression of your own, because you eventually get run down by the rag hero power. So I guess Falcon Seric's trying to set up an empty board for Baron Geddon to try and hit the face many times, which is not the conventional use of Baron Geddon. Generally you want that for healing post Jaina, but this is not a matchup where you can win simply by removing everything from your opponent. So Gambit can slam this Doomsayer just to try and cycle into more taunts. You can also remove it with Blood Razor, Attack, and Battle Cry. Not that it's a particularly big deal. Anyway, having drawn Stonehill Defender, that means that Gambit will almost guaranteed finish his quest by turn 8. Next turn he can go for the 4-drop taunt and Stonehill Defender, and then play whatever he discovered the next turn. And Falcon Seric, really not much he can do. Jaina nor Alexstrasza. Neither Jaina nor Alexstrasza are in the hand. And he even rolls the lowest spell possible and has to expend 1 ping on this Cornered Sentry. Again, not a big deal because in the bigger picture, it's all about the warrior in this game.
Out of my jungle!
Cornered Sentry, the cheapest taunt possible. On turn 8, it will allow Gambit to not only complete the quest, but equip Sulfuras and play the Rag Hero power. So it seems like the natural pick. And Falcon Seric knows that the writing is on the wall. No secret can pull him out of this one. So the clock begins. Cornered Sentry.
Nice little raptors.
And then the Blood Razor can go onto the Arcane Keysmith along with clearing up all those raptors. And Sulfuras plus hero power and the Rag shots begin. Interestingly enough, the Frozen Clone provides Falcon Seric with 2 Cornered Sentries, but he'd rather those raptors be on the board than the 2 6s. Just to prevent some Rag, or provide some Rag scapegoats, but again, it's just kind of delaying the inevitable.
Nice little raptors.
Gluttonous Ooze to get rid of the Sulfuras is a band-aid on a gaping wound.
Job's done.
Just gonna play some Rag Roulette here. Gambit can go for Shield Block and Shield Slam to get rid of the other Cornered Sentry and then push face with the rest of his minions. He honestly doesn't really need to develop that much more minion damage on board either because, I mean, there's any number of AoEs in hand for Falcon Seric at this point. Okay, instead choosing to hold on to Shield Slam, I guess in case something like Alexstrasza comes down. Looks like this turn might just be an Arcane Artificer and Meteor. I felt like that was the play, the Meteor play, because you're really not in need of saving any of these cards. The Artificer creates some kind of buffer against the Rag minion. Even double Artificer and Meteor might have been the play there. It would not have been all that effective, but I think it was the best thing Falcon Seric could have done. Rag shot hitting face. Mercifully. These games have been rather one-sided.
Special armor! Strong and shiny!
Shield Slam on the Artificer. Not a big deal, even though it seems like a waste. Gambit just wants to make sure that Falcon Seric can't extend his clock any longer. Jaina and Alexstrasza both in the bottom 13 for Falcon Seric. That's gotta feel bad. I guess his only consolation is that the removal in Gambit's hand has run out. Of course, Gambit cannot play Scourge Lord Garrosh because it would replace his hero power. Warpath, though, provides a very clean path for the Rag shot to go face. Paired with Acolyte, it also refills Gambit's hand for additional removal. And And after this turn, only 2 more rag shots to go before the mage is dead. Unless they draw into Jaina. There is no more healing available because both Arcane Artificers have been used. Barangeddon, although clearing the board kinda speeds up the clock from the mage a little bit, but Falcon Zarek should realize there's really no way out at this point. I want to see a brawl 50-50 to remove that voodoo doll, but not gonna happen, sure. Gambit still wins the coin flip. It's essentially the same thing. If you brawl, it's a coin flip. If you rag shot, it's a coin flip, but yeah, this game is a great illustration of why Quest Warrior is so favored against the Control Mage. Would have been a little bit closer if Jaina had come down earlier, but a lot of the time it still ends up like this, with the mage having nothing to do with their cards. And the lowly ping, nothing in the face of 8 damage drag shots to the face. So the brawl here can give Gambit another 50-50 to just win the game. Going for it this way, he has a 1 in 3. Plus a 50-50, I think. I'm not exactly sure how the math on that works. But it's still not over, guys. Stonehill Defender is another way to generate minions to delay the rag shot. Oh my goodness. He takes the shield bearer. He takes the shield bearer because it's another thing he can put in the way. But the second brawl is in hand. And another 1 in 4 plus 50-50.
Our vigil shall never end.
Oh, man, this is excruciating to watch. Alana off the top. Oh my goodness, that could be the out. What? Both brawls were used. Oh no, Gambit, what have you done? And now the rag shot will hit face. I guarantee it. It always happens this way. It really always does. Oh, I was wrong. But double Phantom Militia can be put in the way. Gambit still has a ton of health. And still no Jaina in sight, so he still has quite a few more chances to get this rag shot to the face, but I'm sure this must be extremely frustrating for Gambit, as frustrating as it is for us to watch. He lost any number of favorable, or at least 50-50 rolls. Thinking about whether he should just play Acolyte or nothing, I suppose. Yeah, Phantom Militia can be played for 3 minions the following turn, but if you play Phantom Militia for 3, then you're not able to hero power. But if you play Garrosh, you don't hero power at all, but you do get this weapon. And there's no more weapon removal for the mage, so I guess this is a more guaranteed way of beating the mage if they don't have Jaina. But if they do have Jaina, I think this was a game-losing play. Jaina or Alexstrasza. But I think Gambit somehow had the read that neither of those was in hand, and neither came off the top. So that actually is just gonna be the game in a very weird turn of events. Very weird. I am not sure if Gambit had to take that risk there. He could have just stalled and kept shooting rag shots. Maybe he was scared of losing in fatigue, I don't know. But anyway, Gambit takes what should have been a heavily favored matchup and they are now 1-1. This control mage from Falcon Sarek is again quite vulnerable to the Shudderwalk Shaman from Gambit, so if Gambit expects Falcon Sarek to queue it up again, then he might just play out the Shaman. However, if Falcon Sarek changes to Odd Paladin, both of the decks, or rather, Gambit would rather want to queue up his Control Lock, which preys exactly on that deck. Again, for those of you who are just joining us, you are watching the preliminary stages, the regional qualifiers for the 18th Asian Games. We are in the Central Asian group, and this is a match between Gambit from Kyrgyzstan and Falcon Sarek from Turkmenistan. It's going to be the Shudderwalk Shaman up against the Odd Paladin from Falcon Sarek, so I think Falcon Sarek won the kind of 50-50 on the matchups there. He's been winning a lot of 50-50s lately, but it wasn't enough to pull him out of the game against the Quest Warrior from Gambit. So Gambit smartly keeping a Lightning Storm, one of the best ways to deal with the board from the Paladin, but because that hero power from the Paladin is a heck of a refill mechanic on its own, the Paladin tends to be very favored in this matchup. Shaman only runs double Storm and double Volcano as AoE, and often those are overkill against the small minions from Paladin. But because the Paladin packs light and wide, it's not a big deal if their boards get cleared consecutively. Landing this early Acolyte of Pain might be the best way that Gambit can pull ahead in the match. It's guaranteed to get at least 2 draws with this board state. Falcon Sarek pointing out that Vicious Fledgling as one of the main threats against the Shudderwalk Shaman in the early game might force Gambit to go for a Panic Lightning Storm here. Never mind, Saronite Chain Gang is a pretty awesome draw here. Ooh, Lightning Bolt as well to make sure that there's really no shenanigans going on with the Vicious Fledgling. If he plays Saronite Chain Gang, he's very vulnerable to an unidentified Maul buff or perhaps even Raid Leader, so I'd like to see the Lightning Bolt come down on the Vicious Fledgling. He can hold off on the Lightning Storm for one more turn, I think. So yeah, Gambit's just gonna go for Farsight and Lightning Bolt, getting a free Healing Rain. Not a bad result. I always love seeing Raid Leader in a legitimate competitive setting. Don't think that's ever happened before in the history of Hearthstone. Maybe in some Zoo deck from 2013 or 2014. So now Gambit gonna pull the trigger on the Lightning Storm for sure, because this is the level up turn coming up for Falcon Sarek, as well as the Fungal Mancer turn, so. Healing Rain used. I think he could have attacked with the Acolyte first and then Healing Rained, just to maximize the health on the Acolyte. And Falcon Sarek, it might be that Gambit was trying to make the Divine Favor a little bit worse for Gambit. Falcon Sarek could have had one more draw there if he had played out the Acarus Veteran first, and I don't see a reason that he wouldn't want to, because that would set up 2 minions with 2 attack that are better against the Acolyte of Pain. So I think a bit of weird plays from both players over the last turn. Sunkeeper Tarim, one of the most powerful cards, if not the most powerful card you can get off of Stonehill Defender. Absolutely brutal in Odd Paladin, and I think Odd Paladin was designed in such a way that it shouldn't be allowed to get Sunkeeper Tarim because the mechanic would be too powerful, but Stonehill Defender allows the Paladin to cheat out that mechanic, and I believe that could be one of the ways that Falcon Sarek ends this game.
Speak your peace.
Gambit has been doing a very good job of staunching the board pressure, though, only having used one AoE and kind of leveraging his Acolyte as a recruit killer. At the same time, a very good way of drawing cards, and that is the best roll off of the Mind Control tech. Talk about good luck for Gambit there. Not only does it have high health and it is good at challenging Silverhand recruits, it also opened the path for Gambit to take trades on the smaller minions, and now Falcon Sarek is looking in a really rough spot in what should be quite a favored matchup. Looks like Argent Squire plus Sunkeeper Tarim is going to be the play. Not the ideal situation you want to Tarim. Generally, Tarim is there in Odd Paladin when you get it to give you the win or just buff up your board for extreme damage, but now it's being used to take some trades. And Gambit's got to be really happy about that. He can safely play Mana Tide Totem and use Hex on the Tarim, as well as the Glacial Shard to freeze this Argent Squire and get ever so much closer to the Shudderwalk win condition. Lightning Bolt, of course, does pretty much the same thing as the Glacial Shard. Falcon Sarek has no minions to buff with the Fungalmancer. Yes, he can get 2 recruits with his hero power, but it seems like too little too late. Gambit, all he has to do is make sure that the recruits are dead the turn right after they are played, and then he won't have to worry about any level up burst shenanigans, and yeah, he can win just off the regular control.
Such a perfect specimen.
Gambit has everything he needs to contest the Paladin boards, a wide board of his own, which the Paladin has no way of swinging back. In case a huge level up comes out with like Lost in the Jungle hero power level up, he has Volcano to clear that. He has Healing Rain in case any of that damage goes face, and yeah, Falcon Sarek has just been locked out, I think.
Let me think. Reporting for duty.
Vine Cleaver to the face, the best way that Falcon Sarek can think of to create some burst and widen up his board. But again, Gambit, all he needs to do is make sure he takes these trades very diligently. It's kind of tedious, but this is definitely the way to 100% beat the Odd Paladin. With the second Mana Tide joining the board, it seems like he'll be drawing into Shudderwalk and Grumble very soon. Life Drinker as well. My bad. Shudderwalk has been in hand for a while now, so just Life Drinkers, I suppose.
Reporting for duty.
Real bummer for the Paladin that they have no way to deal with these 1 health minions efficiently. The Odd Paladin is getting Odd Paladined by a Shudderwalk Shaman. The irony. Well, Lightning Storm gonna make quick work of this board, and Gambit can continue to push with his regular minions in a very, very un-Shudderwalk-like win condition. Well, I guess Gambit is just deciding to make room on the board. I mean, he could just play Shudderwalk now and still win, honestly.
Let the pain speak to me.
Like, it won't be an instant lethal, but if he just develops a decent sized minion, and none of the minions are going back to the hand because Grumble hasn't been played yet, it's still enough board pressure to race the Paladin a bit quicker.
Reporting for duty.
Falcon Sarek gonna make the best level up board that he possibly can.
Reporting for duty.
But there is Lightning Storm and Volcano in hand for Gambit, so... Oh, just the Lightning Storm is enough because he rolled a Wrath of Air Totem, actually. He might want to start with Mind Control Tech.
PC 130 into dislocator.
And this is yet another very tedious game, I gotta say. There's not even enough space on board for Gambit to play Shudderwalk now. Falcon Sarek will probably clear off that recruit with his Vine Cleaver though. Or maybe he won't.
Reporting for duty.
Your peak.
Is there any way that Gambit accidentally fatigues himself? I don't think so, because Falcon Sarek silenced the Manatide totems. Maybe that was the line for Falcon Sarek, if he had very early on just left the Manatide totem alive. Nah, probably that would have just led to him dying sooner, but the way it turns out, this game has been very one-sided, but is still real slow because Gambit's decks generally just are slow in nature. Falcon Sarek can at least get a Leroy with no drawback on board. That's cute. He can pair it with Blessing of Might. And hope that no Healing Ring, nor Shudderwalk, nor Life Drinker is in hand for Gambit, I guess. But with 5 cards left in the deck, that is very unlikely. Not that the Leroy Blessing of Might would have been enough anyway. Gluttonous Ooze to rub in the pain even more. Add insult to injury to Falcon Sarek. This game has been going on way too long. Gambit has had solid control of the board for like the past 10 turns or something. And he definitely could have just played Shudderwalk as a 7-7 and closed out the game sooner.
I'm almost out of cards.
Sorry. I meant 6-6 for some reason. I thought it was buffed by Keleseth, but there's the Keleseth on hand right here. Man, Gambit really just let himself get to fatigue, huh? Keleseth for an empty deck. That's real funny. That's gotta be a meme. I think that is actually just the latest I've ever seen Keleseth played in any game.
Reporting for duty.
Good lord, Gambit just really like sucking all the life out of his opponents before he finally plays Shudderwalk, huh?
Reporting for duty.
Gotta hand it to Gambit, there is no Hearthstone player I've seen that sucks more morale out of his opponent than him. Falcon Sarek, on the other hand, really doesn't like conceding either.
I'm almost out of cards.
I don't know what Gambit's big holdup with playing Shudderwalk for not the full combo is. Could have won him the game much earlier. But anyway, finally, that game has finished. And Gambit only has to win now with his Control Warlock. He did win kind of an unfavorable against the Odd Paladin now, so the Control Warlock should be home free. Should find a target in that Odd Paladin. A very easy target. Can Falcon Sarek somehow pull it back with his Big Spell Mage? Well, I feel like that should have a better chance against the Warlock than the Odd Paladin. I'm not exactly sure between Big Spell Mage and Control Warlock who is more favored. I tend to just give it to the Warlock because if there's no minions on board, the Gul'dan hero power beats the Jaina hero power. But there's also the fact that the Warlock tends to hit fatigue a lot sooner. Although the Control Warlock list has at least the Trailblazer, so that could give the Warlock more percent in the matchup. For anyone who's just tuning in now, you're watching the regional qualifiers for the 18th Asian Games. This is a round-robin format tournament for the early stages, the preliminaries, and each of the groups is arranged by the different regions in Asia. So you're watching the Central Asian group right now. You got Gambit from Kyrgyzstan versus Falcon Sarek from Turkmenistan. And Turkmenistan was the host country for the Asian Games last year, where Hearthstone was already one of the events. And these preliminaries are leading up to a main event in Indonesia later this year as a run-up to the full inclusion of esports in the 2022 Asian Games in China. Kind of making history here, trying to have esports elevated to something like an Olympic level. So Falcon Sarek has queued up his Odd Paladin once again, running into this Control Warlock from Gambit, and this could be a blowout already looking at the early hand. Double Defile and Hellfire, very, very effective against Odd Paladin. This Vicious Fledgling has the chance to be coined out though, and that could get in an attack before the Hellfire is available. Falcon Sarek sees the window and he takes it.
Job done.
Dark Possession, an interesting inclusion in the Control Warlock deck. The deck doesn't actually include a Possessed Lackey, which is some of the reason that you want to run Dark Possession some of the time, but also just being able to discover a third Void Lord can be very useful, or in this case, just the Vulgar Homunculus. Now, with the Purifier's Maul, this is actually a really, really strong result for Falcon Sarek, making his Vicious Fledgling immune to Hellfire, and also picking up the Wind Fury. Maybe I spoke too soon and the Odd Paladin is actually going to have a good run in this matchup. The board can be cleared, I believe, by double defile. No, actually it can't. Oh my goodness. First defile would put the vicious fledgling at 2 health, and yeah, the second one will not be able to kill it. And so another at least 6 damage will be coming on to Gambit, to the point that Gambit expends a spellstone just to heal himself. Wait a minute. He used it on... Oh, my mind is blown. He used it on the vicious fledgling. Divine Shield, meaning that he didn't get to heal up at all. And I think that is just a clear indicator of lack of game knowledge. Man, that sucks. That really sucks. Blink, and you missed it. That game went to Falcon Sarek. Nice and quick. And so the match score is now 2-2, and Gambit has to pull off a win with his Control Warlock against the Big Spell Mage from Falcon Sarek. Man, Gambit. Oh, Gambit. Why? Why? Gotta say, he made a lot of game-throwing plays, although, to be fair, in the last game he was in a really bad spot, but that was just a clear indicator that he might not have that much experience with how certain mechanics in Hearthstone work. Well, anyway, he's got another shot with this Control Warlock with Treachery, trying to pass off as a bit of a mill Warlock, I guess, with the Howl Fiend combo. And I don't see that deck very often at all. But because he's got that fatigue mechanic, he might have a better chance against this Big Spell Mage from Falcon Sarek. The combo, for anyone that isn't familiar, is to play Howl Fiend and then Treachery to give your opponent the Howl Fiend, and then make them discard their entire hand by using a combination of Defile and Mortal Coil and other compounding damage effects. And that can be very effective against a deck like Mage that heavily relies on Jaina to carry it to a win condition.
Job's done.
In this meta, there's still a lot of argument as to what decks are actually favored against each other. A lot of players haven't found the necessarily ideal way of playing matchups, so there's a lot of argument to be had. For example, in the Even Shaman versus Miracle Rogue matchup, I've heard a lot of different arguments. Generally, when I say a matchup is favored, though, I'm basing it on stats from hsreplay.com. Big shout out to them for providing very useful data for casters and players alike. Explosive Runes seeming like a decent pickup here. It's able to just stop a Howl Fiend in its tracks later on. Not that Gambit would want to play it that early. But because this is not a Q block, you're not too scared of Explosive Runes blowing up in your face by killing a possessed lackey. Frozen Clone was actually the pick for Falcon Sarek here, and it's generally the best to play your weakest minion when testing for a minion-based secret from the mage, whether it's Mirror Entity or Frozen Clone or Potion of Polymorph, although I'm not even sure if that's in the meta anymore, probably not. Gambit, aware that his win condition is fatigue, goes for the Mortal Coil first. That shows a bit more knowledge of the matchup.
Why do you call? Job's done.
Falcon Sarek setting up the Doomsayer behind a taunt here, almost guaranteeing that he will have initiative on the board. However, Gambit can go for a Spellstone if he really wants to. Sorry, the Spellstone wasn't fully buffed up, so he is just going to let the Doomsayer go off. Not playing the Skull of the Minari yet because he doesn't want his Halfian to come down just yet. Jaina has entered the hand for Falcon Sarek, so this could be very crucial as to whether the Treachery comes into hand for Gambit early enough before Jaina gets played, because for sure Jaina will come down on turn 9 otherwise. The Skulking Geist would actually just work against Gambit there because he runs double Dark Possession and Mortal Coil, whereas the Mage runs no 1-cost spells at all. So that's why he plays the Shroom Brewer over the Skulking Geist. Falcon Sarek has now taken control of the board. Very comfortable leading up into the Jaina turn. Still no Treachery available for Gambit to try and burn the Jaina, so it seems like he's gonna have to rely on a bit of a different game plan here. Godfrey, the very clean way of cleaning up the board. Such a powerful card. As if Warlock needed any more AoE. Expending a Meteor seems like it's a little too much, but I think Falcon Sarek is trying to build up his Alana. The only better Meteor targets would presumably be Void Lords, which are still a ways off. And Falcon Sarek would rather buff up his Alana as follow-up to Jaina, I suppose. Or leading into Jaina, so I don't mind that. Gambit has studiously been avoiding tapping, noting that his win condition is fatigue, so he's just gonna play out the Shroom Brewer here, but unfortunately for him, Jaina is coming down on curve. And because he played a 4 attack minion, a trade from the 4 health minion, a trade from the Water Elemental and Hero Power could generate more elementals for Falcon Sarek. Getting Gul'dan online as soon as possible, and now it's Death Knight versus Death Knight battle. That is the saddest Gul'dan anyone has ever seen, though. My goodness. Falcon Sarek can actually Meteor the Void Walker and ping off the Shroom Brewer if he wanted to, but this works as well. It saves Meteor for a Meteor target. Gambit can clear the board with Hellfire and... I wonder if there's a better way to do that with Hellfire and Defile, but couldn't quite put it together. I think you would have to Hero Power first, and then Defile, and then Hellfire. But maybe you wanted to save the Defile.
So many bloody decisions. Out of my jungle!
Truth is my shield.
Sunwalker actually a very annoying minion for the Warlock to deal with, although anything that Falcon Sarek puts down now is good, just because if minions survive, then he might have targets for his hero power and to just generate more and more value. all of these plays looking a bit awkward for Gambit. He can play down his Felguard now that he's at maximum health. Defile this way will not be able to clear off the Sunwalker, but with the help of the Spellstone, I think that is the game plan for Gambit. But he'd rather just save his hero power, save the Spellstone and clear it out with the hero power the next turn, which I agree with. Falcon Sarek playing down the Skulking Geist immediately. And now I think Gambit has reached a point where he can start stabilizing and stop playing minions here. Treachery has entered the hand, so if at any point Gambit draws Defile and the board is looking like it can Defile for more than 2 points of damage, it could likely clear out the Alana from Falcon Sarek's hand. Falcon Sarek is holding back on the Alana because he hasn't seen Twisting Nether yet. So it's kind of a game of chicken.
Bloody decisions.
I'm wondering why Gambit is holding on to the Spellstone. There are not that many better targets for it at this point than the Skulking Geist. But maybe he wants to maximize the healing he gets from it. Falcon start pinging his own Raven to set up the next ping for another void, another water elemental. Not gonna make a difference if Gambit just hero powers it down anyway.
My hunger grows.
Gambit can think about making a greedy Doomsayer play here, but I don't really like it so much because it's weak to Polymorph. Just as long as he keeps the board clean, then he doesn't have much to be afraid of from the mage, aside from Alana. So I guess he's just trying to stall until he draws Twisting Nether. And then if he answers that Alana, he should be in the clear because the mage is slightly ahead in fatigue, or slightly deeper into fatigue, and by nature the Warlock hero power is able to clear more things. But by playing a minion, he's provided a polymorph target for Falcon Sarek. And gotta say, I disagree with Gambit's plays a lot so far. He can now go for a double Doomsayer play, I suppose. Now just the Spellstone alone isn't enough to clear all the minions from Falcon Sarek. He can Spellstone the Water Elemental. Okay, sure. Yeah, this actually works out the same way because, or better, because the mage hasn't been damaged, so Gambit doesn't need to worry about the heal yet. Syndragosa is another card that I forgot to take into account. That gives Falcon Sarek a lot more juice. Wonder, the elemental is Malygos, which is honestly not a big deal. If anything, it makes the AoEs like Dragon's Fury less playable for Falcon Sarek because it would blow up his own board. Falcon Sarek doesn't play any burst to the face damage spells, so not a big deal. Anyway, the Doomsayer Treachery combo, nice and cute as a way to blow up the board. The second legendary is Katharina. I don't think there are any beasts in the deck for the mage, so not a big deal, but at the very least she is a decent sized minion to put some pressure on the Warlock. Falcon Sarek pairing his Malygos with the Arcane Artificer, I think, to play around Tinkmaster Overspark, which is a very heads-up play. But with the hero power, it still makes this a possible target. Okay, the better result for Falcon Sarek coming out. But yeah, by playing the Overspark, it provides another target for elemental generation, and the mage has really been pounding on the Warlock here. However, after this last slew of minions, including Katharina, the Warlock should be feeling pretty good as long as they draw the Twisting Nether for the Alana, so I'm not counting Gambit out of it yet. Gambit really just needs to stop playing minions.
Where's my...
Job done.
Okay, Spellstone is not buffed up enough to take out the Katharina, so that's a bit of a bummer. But there's no way Gambit can afford to play Voidlord here because he hasn't seen the other polymorph yet. Going for it this way removes the most damage off board. I like it. Definitely better than just going for hero power on the water elemental. And Gambit, just hold on to your cards, buddy. And you'll be fine if you draw Twisting Nether by the time that Alana is played. Falcon Sarek has been trying his best to bait out the Nether before he plays Alana, thinking that Gambit has already drawn it, but little does he know it has not even entered the hand yet. Looking at the list, it seems that Gambit has only one copy of Twisting Nether there, which is why Falcon Sarek is being so all in on this Alana landing perfectly, I suppose, because if that Twisting Nether comes down and he's seen Godfrey already, there's essentially no way Gambit can deal with all of those dragons. Oh no, he played Skull, so Polymorph will find a target next turn. I think Falcon Sarek is free to just play Baron Geddon for tempo here. It's more threat on board. It's a minion that needs answering, and it's another temptation for Gambit to play Twisting Nether. Wouldn't mind seeing that. Falcon Sarek hovering over Alana a lot, really tempted to just pull the trigger on it, but he's had this game plan so far, he can't abandon it now.
There is a method to my madness.
Voodoo Doll and Defile represent a full board clear, I think, combined with the hero power onto the Fen Creeper.
My hunger grows.
It also allows him to push face with the Void Lord, but I'm not sure how big of a deal that is because it's gonna get polymorphed anyway, and then the mage will be able to ping it and have another water elemental, and the mage will be able to heal, and the damage from the Void Lord going face would just be cancelled out.
I must feed now.
Playing the Artificer seems a bit weird there since the Geddon would just blow it up, so this is just a very straightforward play for the mage here, setting up much more damage that if Twisting Nether were in hand, the Warlock would be very tempted to just fire it off.
This one will prove very useful.
Skull is hurting Gambit more than it's helping him. Honestly, now this Felguard provides a Flame Strike plus ping target, but with the second Treachery entering the hand, Gambit can now do something interesting. I believe he can go for Halfian, Treachery, Hero Power, well, now that play is gone. Hero Power the Void, the Water Elemental, and then go for Defile for, I think, what'll be 3 charges off. And then that would discard, quite possibly, the Alana from the hand of Falcon Sarek. So, pretty upset that he didn't go for it. I mean, Not sure. Maybe he's trying to hold off for one more turn, but it's very situational that you get to set up a board that Defile is good without that much additional effort.
Time melts away.
And you do need at least some damage on the other minions on board for your Halfian to discard more than one card from your opponent. In any case, Falcon Seric can now generate yet another water elemental this way. And the clock is ticking for Gambit.
There is a method to my madness.
Okay, the Halfian comes down. Now he can go for the treachery play. He can hero power the 3/4, go for Defile, or alternatively go for Voodoo Doll onto the 3/6 water elemental, hero power the Howl Fiend, and then Defile. Or do it this way, yeah, it's the same thing, they're both 3/6s, but this way might discard more things. Okay, so here we go, the combo has come to fruition. And I ragged on Gambit's play a while ago, but maybe he was just waiting for the Halfian to be pulled by the Skull in particular, so he had more mana to do the rest of that play. And Alana has been discarded, so Twisting Nether is not necessary anymore, although it would help in getting rid of this Alexstrasza, gotta say. Twisting Nether is still on the good draw for Gambit here. And he gets it right on time, so it's just going to be hero power onto that Howl Fiend, I suppose, to discard yet another card from the mage. And another. And I think that's it for the mage's threats. I haven't kept track of what cards remain, but Sindragosa has been played, Jane has been played, Alexstrasza, and Alana. Alana has been discarded, and Gambit still has Elise. And a hero power that heals him every turn. So I think he is out of the woods.
Out of cards.
Okay, Voodoo Doll provides Falcon Seric with an answer to Elise though, so perhaps it's not over, but the Elise pack will be very relevant here. And the draw of Void Lord, second Void Lord, also a big deal.
I'm out of cards.
Okay, the fatigue battles begin. Ooze at the very bottom and still crucial. Oh my goodness, what? What? Falcon Seric, oh no, Falcon Seric, no, he misclicked. Oh my goodness. Oh, that is painful. Oh no. No. I'm so sad. Okay, got it together, Gia. Gambit
My hunger
can just trade into the... Well, okay, I guess it's gonna be pack first. You definitely want to hero power this turn, so you're not playing Void Lord. He can Iron Beak Owl the Voodoo Doll to remove the Death Rattle. Then he can trade into the Voodoo Doll and hero power down the Ooze. If he's kept track of Falcon Seric's hand, that would still put the Elise at a health total that's weak to Blizzard. But it's still decent. Yeah. Well, also the fact that just the Iron Beak Owl got played means that there's another target for Water Elemental. So Gambit going face here instead makes some sense. My head hurts. This game. Yeah, I think this is the correct order to go about things. You hero power and then you meteor. And this leaves his own voodoo doll alive for another water elemental target if Gambit doesn't hero power it down. Doomsayer and hero power would actually lock Falcon Seric out of the game, I think. Hero power the voodoo doll, play Doomsayer. That was such a crazy turn of events. If Falcon Seric hadn't missed that ping, I think he'd still be in a decent spot here, but that is just not the way the cookie crumbled. I can't say for sure whether he would have won if the ping had hit the right place, because there's still so much value in Gambit's hand, but Falcon Seric had Meteor at that point to deal with a larger minion and possibly generate another water elemental, and because of that, Gambit is gonna win the game now. What a crazy series. Quite a few large blunders, I gotta say. And overall, I think that Falcon Seric played much better. It was ultimately that misclick at the end, though. That really was his undoing. So yeah, congratulations to Gambit. He will be taking another win in the Central Asian group. But this tournament is round robin over in the group stages, so that's not the last you'll be seeing of Falcon Seric from Turkmenistan. So again, congratulations to Gambit from Kyrgyzstan on, I think, a lineup that is very, very control heavy, kind of tricky to play, and I do think he needs a little bit more practice with it, but the way he built the lineup definitely favored him in the tournament so far. So not to discredit him entirely. Stay tuned, guys, because we got a few more games coming right up.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Road to the Asian Games 2018. These are the regional qualifiers, And we have a matchup now of Neyman versus Alucard. It's the Central Asian group stage. Still best of 5, still Conquest. A little bit of an age difference between these two. Neyman, one of the older players from, well, just Hearthstone in general. He has been around for quite some time. Certainly some accolades to his name. I remember it was 2016, I believe. The European Winter Championship Neyman won. And that is certainly something to definitely tell your grandkids about. Neyman's Mage is going to be banned away, and Alucard's Warlock is going to be banned away. It is open deck lists. I have the deck list in front of me. And I've got to say, I can always tell who is a good Hearthstone player on how well they send their deck lists. How beautiful it is. Because some players will send like 4 separate screenshots of each deck. Whereas some players, they'll gather all 4 of the deck lists together and put it in one nice and tidy screen. And I appreciate that. And I can say, both these players have done that. So just from that point of view, this is obviously going to be a great matchup. Alucard is going to kick things off with his Rogue. It is an odd Rogue, as you can see by, well, the odd cards, plus the hero power. And on the other side for Neyman, it is going to be the even Warlock. Almost called him Neyman. It is Neyman, but for some reason my mind always says Nye. Early on though, all the tools you would want against any aggro lineup. You have a Doomsayer, you've got Defile, Plated Beetle, you've got Hellfire now. All good things for Neyman. But I don't think Alucard will be too upset with his hand either. Having the Fledgling next turn, you hope that nothing's going to be put on the board and it might survive, and sometimes the Fledgling can just win you the game outright by doing Fledgling things. We all remember that first time that Fledgling graced our screens in tournament play. I believe it was a Tespa event just days after the new expansion that allowed Fledgling to come into fruition, but I think some people would have said it was... They had nightmares after watching that, what Druid used to do. But with Doomsayer coming onto the board, that means that Alucard isn't going to be able to play this Fledgling just yet. And stalling some more. That's all Neyman needs to do. Get himself down to a lower life total, just tapping away. And then that Hooked Reaver comes out and makes things very difficult for the Rogue. Of course, we can see the Varspine Slayer. That is an excellent tool. Any sort of single target removal is amazing against even Warlock because they do put big chunky minions on the board. But there's only 2 Varspine Slayers. And then after that, the odd Rogue is struggling quite a lot. But now the pink Flappy Bird will arrive, but it's what you're going to put on there with it. I guess just a Firefly, save back the buff of the Veteran for a little bit later. It's also important to play the Firefly to get the Flame Elemental as an activator for turn 6 with the Varspine Slayer. Neyman not low enough yet to use the Hooked Reaver, but he can just Hellfire this board, which then would put him in a chance next turn to just put down that 7/7. I don't really see any alternatives here. You could Spellstone if you wanted to just keep your Plated Beetle alive at this point. But I kind of like the idea of Hellfire and then next turn Hooked Reaver. If I was sat in his chair anyway. I certainly never will be, because I'm never going to be someone who wins a European Championship. However, it is different when I can see Alucard's hand, and I know that if I were, or if he were, sorry, to play the Hooked Reaver, it is going to be chomped up the turn after by the Varspine Slayer. So maybe he has that kind of read, and maybe he won't go for it because of that. Now this is a really horrible turn, especially with that draw of the second Fungalmancer. And honestly, it's turns like this where sometimes you do just play a naked Varspine Slayer. And what I mean by naked is just on its own, no activator, nothing to kill. You see it sometimes with the same with cube decks. They will just put a cube on the board on turn 5. But considering the value that Alucard can get from this Slayer, I imagine he won't play it. And instead, he is just going to be re-daggering up and saving everything else back. Saving the veteran back now as the activator rather than the flame elemental, because at least then he's got something on the board. But judging from that turn, Naaman should know that Valspine is coming here, but he's going for it anyway. At least he gets a lot of value out of this Swamp Ooze.
Speak your peace.
But with Valspine Slayer getting rid of the hooked revert now, you can trade off as well. A nice trade onto the Ooze. It means your opponent has to tap if they want to get another hooked reaver. But I think this Dread Inferno is probably just going to be thrown straight out of the hand from Naaman. Kills off the 2-1 and puts a bigger body, a bigger presence on the board. But big bodies, what did I say? They get answered by removal, and removal number 2 has arrived in Alucard's hand. Cold Blood plus Valspine Slayer is most likely the move, depending on what he gets off the top here. Baku's not going to change anything, forget that. Baku is not important right now. Oh, wow, okay. Alucard is going to actually save back the Valspine Slayer as a potential removal tool for a taunt that might come down. And the chance to push for lethal next turn. If you were to draw another 1-cost minion, then in theory, he could play a 1-cost minion, play a Cold Blood onto the minion that survives, and then Valspine as well. And be able to push a considerable amount of damage, but Spellstone is going to change that ever so slightly. And suddenly, Alucard on the back foot once again, but he can just SI7 Agent Valspine this 6-4, push another 2 damage to face, and I guess he's kind of hoping for a Leroy Jenkins at some point. Leroy Coldblood for 10 damage out of hand, plus the 2 of the hero power. 12 damage at any point is quite scary. Trouble is, you kind of really want to be saving back this Valspine for the big taunt. And speaking of big taunts, the Lich King is there for Naaman as well next turn if you would like to use it.
This guy's tough.
Maybe you're just using the Fungal Mancer? No, it is the choice to use the Valspine Slayer, which is fine. I suppose there is always the option, or is the potential of drawing the Ironbeak Owl to get through a taunt as well. How all in does Naaman want to go? Because he could go for a very defensive play of Shroom Brewer plus Sun Fury Protector. He could go for Gen Greyman plus Sun Fury Protector. You've seen the big removal tools. And maybe you just want to put an extra taunt in the way, but I think Lich King is too nice of an option. You are very scared of Ironbeak Owl.
So
Maybe you're even using a Defile here, just to clear off one minion, but no, it is going to be the Lich King. And that does mean with Fungal Mancer plus Cold Blood, you can get through this Lich King and push damage too. And with Leroy Jenkins there, that's a lot of damage available. It's not quite there though. Alucard is just going to be counting, as am I. But with 16 damage, 16 health, plus the 8 from the Lich King gets you up to 24. And there's only 20 damage, I believe. Well, there would be if you had the mana for it. So there's even less than that. But across 2 turns, there's about 24, 26 available, depending on how you do it and what minions survive. So I would imagine this turn you're probably Fungal Mancer plus Cold Blood plus Hero Power. Kill off the Lich King with the Cold Blood on the Valspine Slayer because it has the least health. and you're pushing 7 damage to face. And then next turn you have Leroy Jenkins in hand. Naaman 1 turn off Gul'dan. Of course, Gul'dan doesn't have the same effect that it does in Q-Block. It doesn't bring back all demons, they're going to protect you. The hooked Reavers that are brought back don't have taunt, they are 4/4s, not 7/7s. Death and Decay and Hellfire both there, but if Naaman does chunk himself down here and doesn't heal himself back up, he will just be dead to Leroy.
So many possibilities.
So Death and Decay, Shroom Brewer, Sun Fury Protector.
So many
Might have to be the play.
possibilities.
And it is the play. Puts him back up to 13. Silence effect, though, will just finish this game off. The exact amount of damage available for Alucard. He's been knocking on the door for quite a while now. Just teeing up Naaman, ready for that lethal burst if he just drew that one significant card, and Naaman was just about trying to stay out of reach. And I think I do agree with most of Naaman's plays. He did his best, optimized to try and stay alive. Maybe he played too heavily into Varspine Slayer. Maybe there were some turns earlier where he might have been able to bait out the Varspine Slayer with his Greymon, for example, rather than playing the hooked Reaver. But either way, Alucard is going to take a 1-0 advantage with the Odd Rogue. It is a favoured matchup against the Even Lock, but not by that much. Only around 55-56%. Maybe even 54, to be honest, depends on who's playing. So Naaman's going to have to go back to the drawing board and say, alright, well, Even Lock's not done it for me, but will it do it for me again this time? Whereas Alucard gets to move across to something else. Interesting strategies from both players, really, with Naaman losing his mage to Alucard saying, well, I don't want to be facing big spell mage whatsoever with my lineup. And you can understand that looking at the decks that he has got. Odd Rogue, Mid Hunter, Token Druid. All that do typically very bad against any deck with a lot of removal.
We have turned our curse into our strength.
Naaman's going to try his hand though with the Even Shaman now. So Even Shaman against Mid Hunter. This is a much, much better matchup for Naaman and the Shaman. Closer to 70% win rate for the Shaman across Legend Ladder. And when you know that you are heavily favoured in a matchup, it gives you such more of a confidence boost going into it. But it means it's all the more detrimental if you were to lose a favoured matchup, which of course does happen, otherwise it wouldn't just be a favoured matchup, it would be an unwinnable one. It was just 100% to 0%. The percentage of people winning has to happen somehow, and Alucard certainly getting the mole into the Razormaw is the perfect 1-2 wombo combo that you want if you're the mid-range hunter. But sometimes it's not enough. The reason why mid-range hunter really struggles against the Even Shaman is the effectiveness of the battle cries from the Even Shaman. Now the Even Shaman has developed away from its traditional start that it had, and it's now gone down the route of the elementals. You've got things like fire elementals that deal 3 damage, for example. You have the eels that deal 2 damage off the board, and all of this can be used just to clear off minion after minion. Kalimos can arrive later on and clear off a full board as well, or push damage. It's such a versatile card, Kalimos is. If you put on the top of that cards like we can see, like Lich King, like Alakir. Corpse Taker is obviously in this deck list, which is a fantastic card if you can get it on 4 before you've drawn the minions that have the effect that it provides. But already, just that Direwolf Alpha, just having that extra bit of +1/+1 on either side has allowed to just clean up this board a little bit more. The flanking strike, both flanking strikes being available, they're amazing cards. And you can say, alright, well you've got minions with Battle Cry, I've got spells that might as well be minions with Battle Cry. 3/3 that deals 3 damage. Sounds to me it's like a similar card that the Shaman has, although it's a 3/3 that only deals 2 damage. Samurai Chain Gang arrives to the party right on time though, does just put a little bit of a blockade in the way of Alucard. And then next turn, potentially, there is a chance for the Knife Juggler just to clean up the pieces that are left behind after the trades come out. Although, maybe both trades won't, because Flanking Strike being there again. But Alucard will want to get rid of this 0/3 that is just a real nuisance. The board is back in Alucard's favour, but we know the comeback mechanisms that are there for the Shaman. I mean, there's one that's just been drawn. Hagatha on turn 8 is going to be able to sweep up any board realistically that Alucard's going to be able to have dropped. And the only option now for Neyman really is Knife Juggler plus Hero Power.
I wonder.
He would have been hoping maybe for a lower minion being drawn so he could have got 2 daggers. And then there was always the chance that he could have killed off 2 minions because of it. I mean, is he thinking about hexing one of these beasts that are on the board? I mean, you could trade off the 1/1 into the 3/1 and then just hex the 4/2, and then you're only looking at 3 damage coming toward you.
Always little time.
But really, you want to be saving that hex for a more impactful target. Maybe something that comes from Deathstalker Rexar a little bit later. But Neyman is saying no, the time is now. I need to stop any of this damage. I need to make sure I survive to that turn 8 so then I can get back on the board. Because if he can get to turn 8, look at the cards he has available for him. Bear Shark was a really good draw for Alucard. Just fitting the mana curve perfectly. Buffing up his Spellstone because of the Explosive Trap as well. And only a Flame Tongue Totem, so now... it is just survival for Neyman now at this point. A Taunt Totem would be good here, which he gets, so that's a massive positive for him. It means that Alucard has to take down this minion. Unless he gets anything, which he doesn't, he loses a minion if he wants to get rid of the Flame Tongue Totem. He's going to tracking to see if he can find anything. Both flanking strikes have been used. Eagle Horn Bow helps a lot. It means you can clear off this whole board. You do have to take 2 extra damage because of it, but I don't think you'll mind too much. Eagle Horn Bow to take down the 2/2. Use your Bear Shark on the 0/3, and then just take out the Knife Juggler afterwards with your 3/2. It kills it off, but you don't want to leave that Knife Juggler on the board, really. But this is exactly what Neyman would have wanted, and this is why this Taunt Totem was pretty significant, because he's just edging closer now to this late game. I imagine once we hit turn 8, Hagatha is going to arrive, and she's then going to pave the way for more pain. Imagine stumbling down a dark alley and Hagatha, Lich King, and Alakir the Windlord be there waiting for you. Give us your Hearthstone packs. Alucard is having to think though. He's saying, do I need to trade into this Knife Juggler?
Job done.
The answer's no, apparently. The freezing trap's there, but with the Scale Hide being picked up, that means that he can actually use the Scale Hide into the freezing trap and use it twice, getting a total of 3 daggers. Scale Hide, and Hero Power. Another Taunt Totem, so another tool to just freeze here. because you can attack with it again after it comes back to your hand, I think this is good. I was gonna say, I wonder if you kill off. Oh, that's worked out perfectly. That's worked out really nice. It means the whole board now can be cleared off. And now, in theory, Naaman may not even have to use Hagatha next turn. We can see that the Spellstone's there, so the Hagatha will come out, but from his point of view, he's probably thinking, right, I've got the board back, maybe I can just Lich King or Alakir now. So this is going to be an extremely fast toss of Hagatha onto the board. Replace that hero portrait. Start to generate spells every single time you play a minion. Well, I said it would be quick. I underestimated Naaman. Or overestimated him. Either way. Certainly already in this tournament there has been quite a significant amount of fast play. Haven't seen too much roping. But Naaman is one of those players that has been around the scene for quite some time and does know that an extra 10 seconds sometimes can win you a game if you just take that time to have a little think about what you might be able to do, what you might not be able to do. It can change your game, but look at this. From having quite a considerable board lead from Alucard, he's now lost it completely, and Alakir is going to be punishing him completely. Oh wow, the Spellstone being found as well. There are a lot of terrible spells available when randomly generated from Shaman, but that one isn't so bad. And Alucard is just stuck now between a rock and a hard place. And if there's any sort of buff on the Alakir, then Alucard is going to be very worried. You imagine this is just an easy Lich King. As easy as they get, anyway. Looks like he's just going to remove off this Leok, though. Doesn't want any buffs of minions coming through and punishing him because of it.
Put this apple on your head.
And he's just going to go wide. Primal Fin Totem is available there if he wanted to, but Lich King, thank God, he's going to play it.
I must decide.
I mean, there was the option of playing the Spellstone if he wanted to on Alakir there as well. I mean, summoning another Alakir is very strong, but I guess summoning another Lich King will just kill this game off. And we're going to be tying this up 1-1. Looking at this hand now, I'm really struggling to see how Alucard gets back into it. He can unleash plus kill command just to kill off the Lich King. But then there is still an Alakir that's surviving. Still an Alakir that can be duplicated as well. And if Naaman can find a way to overload the mana crystals, there's potential that he could be summoning more than one Alakir. But Flame Tongue Totem there as well. Will just be lethal damage with the Juggler coming into play. Because you can use this Spellstone to be able to get another Alakir, which can also push 10 damage. Am I getting that wrong? He could have just won there, right? Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I don't want to question Naaman, but I feel like you could have Spellstoned summoned another Alakir. As long as you had it on the right side of the totem, then you would have been able to push for another bit of damage. But either way, it's not going to matter. Neyman is still going to win the game. Sometimes you do overlook it when there is a spell available. Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Somebody help me. Either way, we're tying the series up 1-1 now, with the Even Shaman winning its favourable matchup. And there are potential for very back and forth. Does have the potential for a very back and forth series because of the deck list that are available for these two players. When you look at the Quest Warrior is there for Neyman, that can do very well against the Token Druid that is available for Alucard, for example. It can also do well against the Mid Hunter that is available for Alucard. Actually, I mean, Neyman's decks do fairly well against the rest that is available for Alucard. We'll see how this series goes on, as Neyman will have another stab at his Even Lock. This time it's going to be against the mid-range Hunter. Again, the Even Lock is favoured in this matchup,
We have turned our curse
because it has
into
those
our
tools to
strength.
remove early on. Put those big minions down, but if Alucard can find Spellstones, if he can get his animal companions rolling, find Huffer a few times. The Even Lock often put themselves into a false sense of security where they chunk themselves down to such a low life total that the mid-range Hunter can just find lethal damage through kill commands and a hero power. And the secrets are so hard to play against as well when you're the Even Lock, because it's so scary. Are you going into a freezing trap? Are you going into a wandering monster? Are you just giving an extra bit of damage to your opponent by running into an explosive?
To my side.
Huffer not found, but Misha isn't too bad either. I imagine this Mountain Giant is probably just going to be flopped straight onto the board from Neyman. But it can be answered with a freezing trap. And with Spellstone available there as well, I'd be very tempted to use that freezing trap. But Alucard is saying no, he wants to actually push face damage instead. Which I don't blame him. Now the Mountain Giant arrives as the second one is there, and it's going to be used with a Sun Fury Protector. This is going to be slightly difficult for Alucard to be able to chunk through. And you don't want to be playing that freezing trap now. Not unless you're combining it with the flanking strike onto the Sun Fury Protector. You could go down that route. You could trade both minions into the 4-10 Drake, flanking strike, the 2-3, and then play a freezing trap. Tracking's going to be used instead to find something else. You're taking that kill command 100% of the week. Because I feel like you need the damage as mid-range Hunter against this Warlock. You need that burst potential. You need that surprise factor. And the card says, yeah, I kind of do.
Quickly.
But now what do? You could coin out Spellstone if you wanted to. You could just still play the flanking strike onto the 2-3 and kill off the 4-10. Or you could use this kill command to actually get some damage done. And yeah, I'm not so sure. Not so sure I like this play that much, but I guess with Wandering Monster in play, Alucard is hoping it's going to have at least 4 attack. Will Neyman even attack into it is the real question. You could Shroom Brewer first, and then attack into it. Well, you hope it's not something too significant, which it isn't. And you're very comfortable now after Neyman, because another Mountain Giant is going to arrive on the board and really bring the pain As Alucard, if he wasn't struggling already, he's now going to be quite behind here. The flanking strike at least deals with one, maybe a freezing trap potentially deals with another. But realistically, Neyman doesn't really need to be attacking just yet. He can take a few turns just to build up minion after minion and then find something that he doesn't mind throwing towards a freezing trap, like a beetle, for example. Can't play the Hooked Reaver just yet. No way to get down to 15 as well as playing it, unfortunately, for Neyman. So potentially just a Dread Infernal turn, but he is going to attack into this. You can replay the Mountain Giant still. Not the end of the world. But he is vulnerable, only at 18 health. And he is opened up for Alucard to, if he would like, pushing some damage. Spellstone is awfully tempting, go wide now. Although, we have seen 13 cards already drawn. What's the likelihood of one of those 13 cards being a Hellfire? Well, it's pretty high. You have to take that risk at some point, otherwise you're just never going to win this game. Deadly Shot's nice. Allows you to get rid of this Mountain Giant. Trade into the 2-3. Or you can Flanking Strike, coin Deadly Shot if you want. Or you can Eagle Horn Bow, Deadly Shot, just to keep your minions a bit healthier. The minions. But now there is the potential for Hellfire plus Hooked Reaver. But if you are Hellfiring, then you definitely allow your opponent to get a Spellstone turn follow-up. But really, what are your other options? You've got two Hooked Reavers in hand, why not use one of them? You've just seen a Deadly Shot used as well. It deals with the beast that's on the board, gets you down to 15. The following turn you could play Hooked Reaver plus Shroom Brewer as well if you want to get back up. Alternatively, you could just play very slow, go for maybe Gen, maybe just a Dread Infernal. But the rope is the cue for Neyman to actually take his turn. Certainly one of the slower players in this tournament, which I have no problem with. I think it's fine. We're just going to play... So he's saying that he doesn't want to be using the Hellfire because there is a potential for a Spellstone, I guess, with that play. But my reply would be, okay, your opponent's getting 4 3/3s that you can't deal with just one spell, but you have a 7/7 on board. You can then play another 7/7 the next turn, and your opponent has to get through both of those. And 12 damage doesn't get through 14. So quite a defensive play from Neyman, but you know, you don't really blame him. If you do just play defensive with Even Warlock against this Hunter, if you keep your life total at a safe point, if you don't put yourself at any risk of just being burst down, you are going to win. And by keeping back the Hellfire in case a board does go wide, makes perfect sense. I personally would have played it a little bit more differently, a bit more aggressively, but that's how playstyles are. That's how this game works. Well, he's presented with the opportunity again, if he would like it. But if he's going to go down the defensive route, then maybe just the Doomsayer is going to arrive on the board.
So many possibilities.
But he will be counting how he dies. Double kill command, hero power, coin eagle horn bow would be lethal. Okay, so now he's going to take it. Now he's saying, well, I didn't do it last turn, he didn't play a spellstone, so I'm comfortable. I'm okay with playing it. Now the only downside is he doesn't have that second hooked Reaver in this instance. Should have been tracking secrets, and we'll have a good idea of what this secret actually is. It does work out as an explosive trap, and maybe you are. So this is. Are you using Shroom Brewer plus Dread Infernal, or are you just playing Gul'dan and being ultra defensive? Ultra defensive is the answer. I'm not entirely surprised, judging by how Neyman's played this game. Although by the way he has played this game, I think it is a winning approach. It's just winning a little bit slower. Although, this is quite scary. Animal Companion could buff up all of these 3/3s to 4/3s. A Crackling Razor Maw could then allow extra damage on one of them as well to be able to push through just a single target. And there would be 14 damage available from the rest of the wolves plus the hero power. Really looking for +1/+1 for attack, and +1/+1 is found, which you're going to take. Wind Fury not as valuable. And Neyman now is going to be really weak. But the hero power is your saving grace. You can be getting yourself back up. You do have Shroom Brewer as well. And there's a Defile option. You can hero power Defile. So you go face with the 4/4, hero power the Leok, Defile, Shroom Brewer, and anything else you want to play as well. The Twilight Acolyte, probably. Twilight Drake, sorry. And then when it comes to burst potential, we've already seen one kill command. We've already seen one Eagle Hornbow, maybe even two. And that coin just been sat there all game, no turn. Alucard has found it valuable enough to be played, and it's just going to be completely useless now. And you've got to think back to, is there a turn where we could have played that coin, even if it's turn 1, 2, 3, just to get some benefit out of it. But now, Neyman is going to be able to heal himself up out of range every single turn with this hero power. He can play a Twilight Drake, or he can play again, Greyman if he wants as well. Just put something big and chunky on the board. Probably just Greyman. Because you don't want to Dread Infernal and put yourself down to 9, even though there is actually nothing that can kill you from Alucard's hand. And Neyman is going to be going 2-1 up here. He played it defensively, he played it slow, but it worked out in the end.
My hunger grows.
He could have played it far more aggressive and probably won maybe 4 or 5 turns ago. However, I don't think he's going to matter how he wins as long as he does win. But he's having a real think about this. He's just saying, well, okay, how much damage does my opponent have? Does it matter if I go down to 8? He's probably thinking about the deck list that is available for his opponent. Now, Deathstalker Rexar, does that change anything? Probably not. Maybe a little bit too late. Neyman will know full well that the other card is a coin. There's no Leroy Jenkins in this deck. So he knew he was comfortable at 8. Didn't go too wide because of Unleash the Hounds, but I mean, I still don't see why not, because you can go wide with and have definite lethal on the board next turn. Whereas now, this isn't definite lethal, because the Deathstalker Rexar can heal back up Alucard, and he can build a beast for next turn. He can make a 10 mana beast for next turn if he would like, with the options to offer him that. Thunder Rhino is always tempting. And one with Lifesteal as well. And now this isn't so simple. Not simple at all, but Neyman can just still to generate a lot of damage because of this hero power. But if he had just played Gen Greymon last turn, if he had just been that slightly little bit more aggressive, he would have just had lethal. But he has been so defensive. Saying, oh, I don't want to give my opponent this chance to get out. Oh, what if he has this card? But Unleash the Hounds wouldn't have mattered. Unless he's not tracked Alucard's hand and doesn't know that this coin is a coin. If he thinks that coin could be an Unleash the Hounds or a kill command, then fair enough, because Unleash the Hounds plus kill command is very different. But knowing there could have only been one card that could have been drawn, I just think Neyman's been too passive here.
So many blood. I must feed now.
And again, like, I mean, what are you thinking about at this point?
Our greatest strength.
Now this Zombeast is going to be able to heal back up Alucard, but is it going to be able to heal up him enough? I don't remember how much it actually had attack-wise. I think it only had 3. And with him not drawing another beast from hand, he's not going to get any value either. So he is just going to be dead. And finally, because Neyman did decide to put the Gen Greymon on the board, he is going to get lethal. Just imagine if Neyman had played a little bit more aggressively. Probably could have won. Yeah. They probably could have won a lot sooner, sorry. But Wandering Monster probably not going to save Alucard. It is a last-ditch attempt. You could get the 2-8 with Taunt that might be able to save you. That's not going to save you. This is going to be game. A longer game than I think it was probably necessary, but yeah, that doesn't matter as long as you get the victory. I think said Neyman was going to go 2-1 up quite some time ago, and he probably should have. Either way, he's now 1 game away from taking this series. But he has to find a victory with his last deck, which is Quest Warrior. And I'd imagine that Alucard will probably queue in his mid-hunter against the Quest Warrior, because his other deck is Token Druid, and Token Druid typically does terribly against Quest Warrior because of the amount of whirlwind effects that are available, and the Token Druid just gets pooped on, to put it bluntly. Although I think it's around a 30% chance statistically for a Token Druid to win if he plays it. But for Mid Hunter, it's around 44. He is going to go for the Token Druid though, which is interesting. I'm not saying it's not winnable. It is 100% winnable, but you are kind of banking on your opponent not drawing those whirlwind effects. If your opponent doesn't get into a Blood Razor, doesn't find his Warpaths, doesn't find Primordial Drake, there's a lot of ifs and buts, and Warpath and Blood Razor are both available, so I guess for Alucard, how you have to approach this is by saying, right, I need to bait out these whirlwind effects as early as possible with minions that don't really matter, or I can use one of my Whispering Woods to go wide. He plays his whirlwind effect, I then play it again and hope there isn't a second whirlwind effect. But Neyman doing something that we were very used to back in the day of Quest Warrior, of throwing away the quest against a deck which you know you don't need the quest to beat. Any aggro lineup, you really don't need that quest. And that's why Neyman is saying, right, goodbye, I don't really care about Sulfuras, I don't really care about the hero power.
Speak to me.
He thinks he could just win out on taunts and whirlwind effects, as it were. Genuinely, I don't know how correct that is nowadays. I know back in the day, when Quest Warrior was first around, that was completely correct most of the time. But there were some pros who would argue and say, no, you still keep the quest, because you do need to finish your opponent off at some point. And there has been a lot of minions lost in this Quest Warrior deck in comparison to how it used to look. There's not as many threats. I mean, if you look at the actual minions that are available for Naaman, Primordial Drakes, Harrison Jones, Stonehill Defender, Phantom Militia, Acolyte of Pain, Drywisk Armourer, Cornered Sentry, and Saronite Chain Gang. None of those are really big threatening minions that are going to be able to kill you off.
Job's done.
So maybe there is merit to actually keeping the quest and just playing the quest for Naaman. Especially when this is such a favoured matchup. I'm unsure. I'm having my own inner monologue debate, which I guess I can say out loud because I'm the only one casting. If I had a casting partner at this point, I would say, well, what do you think? And it depends who I was with. If I was with one of my co-casters, Darrock Brown, he'd probably tell me I'm an idiot and give me reason for why Naaman is definitely right. But I'm unsure. I am unsure, and I think it's something that I'm going to have to take a look at various games and various statistics and see where those wins came out. Did they come out with people that were keeping the quest? Because, like, just looking at the threats, I don't think there's enough threats to actually win a game without Sulfurous being your endgame total. Now, there is the chance that he can draw into that quest, but he hasn't done yet. So he's going to be looking at this Stonehill Defender to actually find minions that are impactful and can win games. Because Alucard has got up already to his Malfurion. He's already been able to get 2 tokens on board. His hero power is going to be more influential turn by turn now. Naturalize is available, and you know what? Naturalize could be used to burn if he wanted to. Is there anything you really want to burn? Yeah, I guess there is. Blood Razors, Brawls. But I think you'll use it later for a lethal push, potentially. Alucard will, these naturalizers.
Pay attention,
He does
class.
have Ultimate Infestation next turn, so I wonder whether he's tempted to get rid of some of these cards. Yeah, and he is going to use a naturalizer. He's going to take the chance to burn 1 card from his opponent, but it also thins out his deck, which is important. Might even use a Branching Pass combined. Yes, he will. Give these minions just some extra attack. No Brawl. There is 1 Brawl in hand. Sorry, excuse me. And I don't think Alucard will mind too much baiting out one of them this early on in the game, especially when he has Ultimate Infestation available.
Death is eternal. My turn is not.
Warpath going is really, really big. Really big for Alucard. He will be extremely happy seeing that disappear. Whilst, yes, we can see Naaman has another Warpath in hand, there are several ways to rebuild your board. And if you can get rid of one of the tools that your opponent has to remove that board, then you are in a really good spot. And this is my worry for Naaman. This is my concern that... Yeah, okay, he's got a few tools of removal. He's got the Brawl, he's got Warpath, he's got Blood Razor. But then what? Are you really going to win the game by hitting your opponent for 1 or 2 across your Cornered Sentry and Stonehill Defender? I almost said Stonehenge Defender. That's something very different. Not a card just yet, but I'm going to pitch it to Blizzard. Don't ask me what a Stonehenge Defender looks like. I've driven past Stonehenge several times, and there's some crazy people there. Nice people, don't get me wrong, but crazy. No Brawl going to be used though, just yet. It looks like Alucard is going to be having some minions survive, or at least just 1. And I guess that's good for Naaman, being able to remove a board without committing all his removal tools. But Ultimate Infestation is going to allow Alucard to draw right through his deck and keep this 3-3 alive. And Put a 5-5 on the board as well. 5-5 that could survive from Brawl. A 5-5 that is pretty difficult to get rid of if it survives from Brawl, because you've just used one of your executes. You don't really want to be using another. But you may have to. And now with all these cards drawn as well, you do have to be scared of the amount of burst potential, the amount of, like, if double Savage Roar plus Branching Paths were in hand, even with just 2 minions on board, that's crazy amount of damage.
Let the pain speak to me.
Naaman is just going to begin searching through his own deck. It does allow him to clear off this minion. He could use the Execute if he wanted to here. And it looks like he is going to as well. I don't blame him. Stay ahead on this board. But now we've seen Blood Razor be used. We've seen a Warpath be burnt. How does Alucard feel now about maybe Whispering Woods into Soul of the Forest? Or maybe you just Whispering Woods this turn. You just Whispering Woods and you say, alright, well, if he's got a second Warpath, then take it. Because then you've got a second Whispering Woods plus the Soul of the Forest. And you know full well that he's not going to have another one.
Tangled web.
So I like trying to bait it out here, but I guess you do have another Soul of the Forest in the deck as well, so this 100% guarantees that a Warpath has to be used. Now this even more so. Because it can't simply be answered by a Blood Razor. How does Naaman win this game? This is supposed to be almost a 70% statistic in favour of the Quest Warrior in this matchup. But Alucard now is going to be baiting out that Warpath, which can be used. He gains a lot of armor because of it. But then how does he deal with this exact same board next time? Brawl? Okay, you brawl, but then what? You've got suddenly a board full of 2/2s again. Double brawl? Well, there is double brawl. But what's happened here? What has Naaman done? How has Naaman messed that up so badly? Didn't even get time to play the Tar Creeper, Savage Roar's now there as well, and Branching Paths. Is he just dead? I haven't had time to count it because of the sheer disbelief, but I imagine he's probably just dead at this point. And that is an absolute throw from Naaman. That is a terrible turn that he's just played, that I can only bring down to panic and not really knowing how he was going to approach that turn. I still think throwing away the quest is probably wrong, but Alucard winning a very, very, very unfavourable matchup, and some questionable decisions from Naaman. A man who has so many achievements in Hearthstone. Top 4 at Seat Story 5. Most recently beat Stan Sifka in a minor tournament for about 5 grand at the end of 2017. Naaman is a fantastic player, but that game was not played well by him whatsoever. And it has to come down to lack of preparation and not knowing the matchup, in my opinion. And just mechanical error with the Warpath. He literally could have cleared that whole board just with Warpath. But he was messing around. But he has a chance to redeem himself against a mid-range hunter. Another matchup that is favoured for the Quest Warrior, but now Don't even know anymore. Alright, he's kept the quest this time. Neyman needs to forget that game. Put it behind him. Imagine you're not playing the Cornered Century here. Good. Alright. Neyman's back on track. Just a naked Razormaw is going to be plopped onto the board, and that's okay because you've got coin into Houndmaster next turn. Works out really nicely. Oh look, there's Warpath. Remember how that card works? I'm sorry. People make mistakes. Maybe I'm making a mistake. Maybe, I don't know, maybe there was a reason he couldn't kill everything, but fairly certainly could. Animal Companion, Hopper would be nice, Leok would be nice, that does the job. It means you don't have to use the coin for the Houndmaster and you can use it next turn. But Blood Razor is nice here. I don't think you'll Cornered Century into Warpath for this turn. I think it is just single Blood Razor. Probably taking an extra 2 damage from the Leok as well. Setting up the ability to kill that off next turn. But the Houndmaster is going to change things somewhat. Or are you using the Razormaw now that's being drawn? Razormaw plus Venom Strike, potentially? You might be able to get this Leok out of range of actually being killed. Houndmaster doesn't do that, but it does mean your opponent has to take extra damage just to kill it off. So I like this. Use the Razormaw, look for +3 health, which is there. Great. And then Venom Strike Trap, so if you do get a minion attacked into, then you get a 2/3 Poisonous Cobra as a reward. It's been a long series for both these players now as we edge into the hour mark for this series. Usually a best of 5 does kind of reach around an hour. But we have seen series in this meta get up to 1 hour 30, 2 hours, depending on what matchups. When you think that Taunt Druid is now in this meta, Control Mage or Big Spell Mage is around as well. West Warrior can even be quite slow games too, but now with the Blood Razor already down 1 durability, it means you can get the Death Rattle effect to clear off your opponents. 1/1s that you just summoned them, but there is going to be a Poisonous Cobra that can deal with this Cornered Century. And it can survive if you put the Houndmaster on it as well. Houndmaster onto the Cobra, kill off the Cornered Century, and then you're probably killing off the Acolyte as well. You are losing this game if you allow your opponent just to draw through their deck. And the 2 damage I don't think is going to be that important just yet. Quote me on that later when he's 2 damage off lethal, by the way. If you are just joining us, this is the road to the Asian Games, you can see on the left hand side of the screen. Quite the tournament for anyone to qualify for, really, if you think about any major sports tournament that involves esports and allows the possibility for players to represent their countries. It's a very proud moment. And you'd expect names like Neyman to be there in the final list of qualifiers, qualifying from their region. Neyman being from Kazakhstan and Alucard being from Uzbekistan. Now Warpath is going to be used, and as I said, the value from Acolyte Pain is going to be had now because Alucard decided not to trade off. Neyman does have to use Warpath both times now if he wants to get the full clear with it. I think he's still haunted by that last game. But a successful board clear. But he's only 2 out of 7 on his quest counter. He does need to start getting that back up, because he can't just sit and absorb all this damage. And the thing is, once that quest is complete, and he does opt to play Sulfuras, suddenly his armor gain potential isn't as good. Yes, there's cards like Shield Block and the Dry Whisker Armorer, but there needs to be minions for the Dry Whisker to actually be able to get any value. And Alucard's not playing them at the moment. Well, mainly because he doesn't have them. Deadly Shot probably going to be used onto this hatchling and allow him to push another 5 damage to face. Drop a Wandering Monster on the way. Deadly Shot doesn't have to be used now. He could use Flanking Strike plus his face and the Hero Power and save the Deadly Shot for something else. Which is probably the more sensible option. But a 3-2 victory over Naaman would be quite the feat for Alucard. I did have a look through, see if I could find any history of Alucard, what he's achieved in Hearthstone, but in comparison to Naaman, I think most players are still quite low on the leaderboards of what they've achieved. Naaman did of course have a break after achieving what he did back in 2016, but came back in the latter stages of 2017. These draws not particularly great for Alucard. He does have Unleashed available if he wants to kill off this 2-5. He could take the risk of a Deadly Shot and hope to hit the 2-5 if he wanted, but probably too much of a risk. But he's running out of things. He's running out of resources, and now with the Phantom arriving in Naaman's hand, he can complete his quest next turn, playing that 3 times. Naaman does remember how Echo works. Am I being mean now? And even though this match less favourable than the previous one, Naaman does look far more comfortable.
Moves quickly.
I don't think there'll be much thinking about this. Play the Phantom 3 times. Get that quest counter ready, and then put your opponent on the clock. So next turn you can start killing insects for fun. A pastime that I do not condone. I would not advise anyone does it. However, Ragnaros might. Unleash the Hounds plus Houndmaster isn't dreadful, but it's not great either. It's something. But I kind of feel like now this wall is becoming too big for Alucard to be able to come back from. At least he's got a few minions on board that might be able to soak up the inevitable damage that's going to be arriving from Sulfuras, but considering you've also got the weapon hit from this Bloodbrazier. And actually, you don't even need to use... You can equip Sulfuras this turn, get a Death Rattle that kills off the 3-1. You can then kill off the Houndmaster. Then send 8 damage to face. Then I would say attack, just in case the minion is a little bit bigger. Or you can go the other way round. You can kill off the Houndmaster with the 2-2, which is the way Naaman's going to go about it. I still think you Fireball first, in case this is a big minion, like a 2-8 or something. It's not, so it doesn't matter. But I like getting the 8 damage in first. And it's looking like Naaman is going to take this series 3-2. He's certainly made it difficult for himself, as the Eagle Horn Bow is not going to be enough, and Alucard does concede. It's been a shaky series for Naaman, I'm not going to lie. There's questions that I've posed for both players and how they were playing, but Naaman in particular a little bit rusty, it would seem, but ultimately, getting the victory, that is all that matters for him. I'm sure he will be happy to get that one out of the way, and we'll probably put it behind him and not remember it too fondly. But all that matters, he gets that 3-2 victory. Congratulations to Naaman.